Well, it's a good thing we spent our whole fucking summer on that bullshit. Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? I'm fucking great. It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with an emergency live stream coming at you from the bowels of where I've been writing about something that will never happen for the last 2 months. And here we are. Before we talk about the news of, there's actually two pieces of news. Boy, the timing. Donovan Mitchell traded to Cleveland. We'll get into what he was traded for in a bit. It's a haul and a half. And RJ Barrett officially announced, the extension is announced. But first and foremost, Jeremy Cohen. Hello, sir.
Hey, John. Quite the notification that we got. I was just sitting there doing some work for my job. No longer. Now we're here. And I'm just happy it's resolved. I'm sure a lot of people are. We'll get into more of it, but just Labor Day weekend, folks, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to sit by the phone thinking, hey, is Donovan Mitchell going to be traded today? No, it's already happened. It's behind us now.
I'm starting my Labor Day weekend now, as you can see.
Cheers.
Andrew Claudio, you going to say hi?
I guess not.
No, I'm here. Hi, everybody. It's a mix of emotions right now. Thank you for the summer content. Donovan Mitchell, Leon Rose, Danny Ainge. I'm very curious where today goes. I can't help but have the initial thought of Andy Dufresne finally getting through all of the muck and the shit in the pipe and just putting my hands up in the rain. That it's over. It's over. The summer of Donovan Mitchell is over.
So let me start off. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to try to not get them out all at once because we want to have a coherent show. About 2 months ago, I think now, almost 2 months ago, when the Mitchell news dropped that he was on the table, and then I think it might have been the afternoon or the day after the afternoon that the news dropped that the Knicks were in talks. I wrote a long newsletter basically saying, analyzing whether they should be all in or not all in, whether they should be in on Donovan Mitchell at what we had to know the cost was going to be. And sure enough, here we are, sitting nearly 2 months later, and the cost is exactly what we thought it would be, just not from the Knicks. And the conclusion that I reached that day in my initial analysis, thinking about it really after a little bit, was you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And in the NBA, the way it works right now, with the way what it costs to trade for players of this caliber, and with the death of free agency, if you do not draft a no doubt about it star player, you're kind of screwed, because it's almost impossible to accumulate enough assets to trade for two of them. But then again, if you're in the Knicks situation and you're a pretty good team and you want to go from being a pretty good team or a decent team to being a better than that team, what's step one? Well, step one seemed to be Donovan Mitchell. And we thought, I think, for most of the summer, because of all the reporting that came out, that there were no other serious suitors, nobody could really get in contention. My Donovan Mitchell just tweeted 2 red exclamation points. After Darius Garland tweeted 10 and Spida. So I guess Donovan Mitchell's pretty happy about this today. I guess, oh yeah, let me finish my point and then I'll turn it over to Jeremy. When Cleveland's name dropped, and Bagley, to his credit, who was all over everything this entire summer, he was the first one that had Cleveland's interest, I believe. Maybe it was mentioned in passing, but the way he wrote an article, I think it was 2 weeks ago, was like, oh, Cleveland's in it. Like, he made it very clear. And I wrote, I think that next day, I was like, man, Cleveland could make a real offer. They have enough to make a real offer. They can put 3 unprotected picks. And God knows Danny Ainge knows the history of the league. And 3 unprotected firsts from a team owned by Dan Gilbert, well, those might come in handy at some point. Even with what is, without question, an exemplary young nucleus. And then a few days later, Ian reported Cavs are out. And I believe he followed that report up today, a few minutes ago, with basically saying Cleveland was out, but after the Knicks and Jazz reached an impasse, they went back in. And give them credit. Give them credit for putting they put literally everything they could on the table outside of their big three, which they were never going to trade. But like, this is a real offer. And they took the risk that this guy's going to be a free agent in 3 years, and they think that what they can do in that time frame, in the intervening time, it will make it worth it. Whether it's to convince him to stay or just what they could win. Maybe probably not next year, but maybe the year after that or the year after that. And they got a guy in Evan Mobley who is talented and special enough to perhaps give them the validity to think that way and it not be crazy. And that gave them the luxury to make this trade. It gave them the luxury to do something that the Knicks did not have the luxury to do, because where the Knicks are and who the Knicks don't have in terms of, no doubt about it, can't miss, top 20, 25 trade value ranking type guys on their roster. Am I disappointed? Absolutely. I'll just share one little snippet of news, which, and then I'll turn it over to Jeremy. I got a couple different things today, from different people saying 4 unprotecteds. And I couldn't figure out whether the Knicks were offering 4 unprotecteds or whether the ask now with RJ Barrett off the table was 4 unprotecteds. And I feel confident in sitting here and saying the final ask for the Jazz, their final drop dead, whatever, do it or you're not getting Donovan Mitchell, was they wanted 4 unprotecteds and Grimes. And Leon was not willing to do it. And you know what? I kind of get that, because when you look at the players that the Jazz got in this trade, you could make arguments about different ones of them, who they could be flipped for. Can Markkanen be flipped? Can Sexton be flipped now that he's on a nice contract, decent contract? We'll see what that turns out. The rookie Obaji, he's nice player. It's a real offer. Should the Knicks have traded 4 unprotected picks and Quentin Grimes for Donovan Mitchell? I wanted Donovan Mitchell more than anyone, and I don't even think they should have traded that. It'll probably come down to RJ when we analyze this trade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But before we do any of that, Mr. Cohen, your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, shout out to Danny Ainge. He knew what he wanted. He got what he wanted. Kudos. I just want to say the haul that the Jazz got. If you're not familiar, so it was Donovan Mitchell going to Cleveland for Colin Sexton via sign and trade, Larry Markkanen, Agbaji, 3 unprotected firsts, and those are in 2025, 2027, and 2029.
And the Cavs could not trade any picks before that because they owe a protected pick to the Pacers from the LeVert deal. But the difference between their protected pick and the protected picks that have Washington has outstanding and the Hornets have outstanding, who are also rumored to want to get in on this, is those protections go out for several years. If the Cavs do not convey their 2023 pick, which they probably will now, that would have converted into 2 seconds. So they had the ability to put 3 unprotected firsts in the deal, unlike everybody else that was ever apparently seriously involved in these trade sweepstakes.
Yes, and Colin Sexton was a free agent, restricted free agent. He'd been holding out. He didn't like the offer that the Cavs had, and he had to agree to make this trade go through math-wise. So with that being said, when we first talked about Donovan Mitchell, we did a Donovan Mitchell cap or no cap when the season was still going on, but the Knicks had the offseason. And my general feeling was this is a really good player, great offensive player. The timing's not right. He's someone you could maybe target in 2023. What happens is that these guys, when they have 3 years of team control, when they're stars, they don't get on the market. It's not likely to happen. They don't force their way out. Nope. And then sure enough, the Jazz go in a completely different direction, which was, well, we're going to trade Rudy Gobert, but instead of pairing win now talent with Donovan Mitchell, we're going to flip Donovan Mitchell, which is a very different situation than Donovan Mitchell saying, hey, I don't care how many years I have left. Get me out of here. And the Knicks signed Brunson. And at the time I felt, no, I don't want Donovan Mitchell. It's a very small backcourt. I feel like I'm confident just seeing what this team is. You don't have to go all in. It's fine. And then as time went on, I felt increasingly more comfortable just based on the fact that, yes, star talent is hard to find. you do have someone who wants to be in New York. It makes a lot of sense how you could build around it, sure. But I could never, ever get to a point where 3 unprotected first-round picks was a place I was comfortable with. And the reason for that is because it was always, what's the player after Donovan Mitchell? What's the star once you get Donovan Mitchell in the building? How do you build from there? And the whole premise was, well, you then can't really do anything until 2025. And that's a long time from now. It's not that nothing could happen, but it's a while.
Can you explain why I think we did it last night, but I'll leave the floor to you as to why trading for Donovan Mitchell would not have allowed the Knicks to trade for, they could have traded for some people, but we'll take it away.
Yeah. So for example, if Donovan Mitchell were acquired by the Knicks, he's on the designated rookie max. And the rule is that you can't trade for 2 of those players, right? Like the Nets, for example, they traded for Ben Simmons. They couldn't also trade for Donovan Mitchell. I'd actually said in our last podcast that Brandon Ingram was an example. He's not a designated max player, veteran max, a rookie max contract. That's not who he is, because he didn't sign an extension. He signed in free agency and extended from there. So basically, if you're the Knicks, Donovan Mitchell's contract doesn't end until 2025, which means you can't get a player on their, I don't want to say on their second contract, because again, you could trade hypothetically for an Ingram type, but for someone like Donovan Mitchell, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like Ben Simmons, like those types of contracts. And so
I could say all the names now. Really, I have them in front of me because I was working on an article on this, which will now change a little bit. Here are the players who the Knicks would not be able to trade for, at least in the next 3 years. Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, and again, some of these don't apply if they would have gotten Mitchell, but just I'm going to read them all. Zion, Ja, Darius Garland, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, SGA, Michael Porter Jr., Jason Tatum, Bam Adebayo, De'Aaron Fox, Ben Simmons, and Jamal Murray. And then for the next 2 years, it would have been Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker. And then after 2 years, you could have traded for them because they would be off of their rookie max extensions. And then in 1 year, Joel Embiid will be off of his as well.
Exactly. So it's not that it's impossible. It's just, it's tougher to do. And I think that's why I felt if the package were comfortable enough where the Knicks could trade from a point of depth, I was fine with it. But then when you start getting into the unprotected part, not even because I viewed Donovan Mitchell as a flight risk if he were in New York. I mean, you never know what happens, but more just based on the fact of, if it's about getting the guy after Donovan Mitchell, we shouldn't be focusing quite as much about Donovan Mitchell. It's important. That's what a lot of the protected picks are for. That's fine. But in terms of just the Donovan Mitchell scope, I would have loved to have had him here. That would have been great, but it wasn't worth what it was to Cleveland. You know, you look at a lot of these other teams that give up that type of haul. It's like the Bucks getting Drew Holiday. They viewed him as a final piece. It's the Hawks getting DeJounte Murray. I don't know if they view him as a final piece. Not really, but it's the sort of thing where, but they have
who's
someone
a better
who is
offensive player than Donovan Mitchell.
Exactly. Yes. They have someone who's better. Like we've seen Anthony Davis, the Lakers gave up almost everything in order to get him because they knew we have LeBron James, we get Anthony Davis. The Knicks don't have a LeBron James. They don't have a Giannis Antetokounmpo. They don't even have a Trae Young. So the whole thing is that, as you're saying, John, I agree. A lot of times it's you have to find that talent through the draft. And if you can't do that, then you need to find a way where maybe they're towards the end of their contracts, whether it's a sign and trade or a free agency signing. Obviously, free agent, again, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's very much dormant for the next few years. I mean, it is. It's dormant. It's not dead. Well, there's still stars, but even still.
2024, now that they haven't traded for Mitchell, becomes more interesting in my eyes. I know everybody's focused on 2025, as they should be, but we'll talk about that.
But that's what I'm saying. It's dormant, not dead, until they sign these, that sort of thing. So there are ways for the Knicks to go about it. And the thing that I was very eager to see this past offseason was, all right, after the draft where the Knicks essentially traded the 11th overall pick for 3 future first-round picks and found a way to create cap space to get Jalen Brunson, what I really wanted most was the opportunity to build through the draft. Use those picks to trade up, trusting the development and the scouting that you have in order to find young talent that you can then use in a trade like this, although for a player who's probably better than Donovan Mitchell, or you just bet on their growth. You bet on their development. And I'm not saying that's changed. It's more just that it's a tougher path, because when we look at the free agents, the players on the market, there's always going to be a star who's on the horizon. Just depends on whether they're the right. Hold on. Let me finish. There's always a player who's on the market but they have to be the right fit in order what the Knicks want. Donovan Mitchell fit not just because he wanted to be here, and let's face it, we know he wanted to be here, but because he fit the archetype of a guard who drives, who can pull up, who can shoot off the dribble. I mean, pulling up essentially, catch and shoot. He can do a lot. He developed into a really nice playmaker. There's stuff to work with him, and you could see him getting an extra gear as well, based on where other stars are. And again, things can always change. The market for that isn't really as fluid as we would have seen it right now with Don. So it'll be fascinating to see where the Knicks go from here. And I mentioned this on a recent podcast, and we can talk about this more, or we don't have to. There is a way for the Knicks to still consolidate the roster a little bit, for them to walk away from this still feeling pretty good.
Oh, they're not
done. They're
not done. I could sit here and, well, let me rephrase that. I could sit here and report. I very rarely use that word. I will report right now. They are very hopeful that they're not done.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes of it.
And there's a team out west that has a player that does not currently have a role, that's looking for a new place to be. And I'm not saying he will see a minute on the court if he were to be in New York, but I'm just saying the Knicks have.
If he does,
this
bottle,
hold on. Let me get
this bottle will be gone.
That's fair. Fine. But the Knicks have the salary and the pieces that LA would want. Yeah. And they would be, this is why they did their exploration in terms of why are we looking into a player like Russell Westbrook? It's evaluating all of their options. The question, of course, is with the market drying up in other areas and the Lakers needing to do something, are they willing to do more? Are they willing to push a second first-round pick onto the table for what they can get? We'll see how desperate they are. But again, I'm disappointed, obviously, that Donovan Mitchell is not a member of the Knicks. But if it was never going to be on the Knicks' terms, especially with 3 unprotected picks, you walk away. You have to focus on the long term. And I know there are fans who are saying, like, well, I wanted Donovan Mitchell. How long are we going to wait for this? What the hell? I hear you. I understand that. I completely get it. And yet at the same time, we don't have to take that big next step. We don't have to get there right now. We don't have to force the issue. We can take a little bit more time and gradually get into it. And the rebuttal would then be, well, I've been waiting X many years to see a good team. Yeah, we all have. I hear you. I get it. But it doesn't mean that it has to be this guy at this time in order for things to go in the right way.
First of all, that was extraordinarily well said. All from top to bottom. It's not about being impatient. I wrote a piece a week ago in which I went through literally every under 25 3-time All-Star, like 3 All-Star teams before the age of 26 trade in NBA history. Half of them have occurred in the last 12 years. And if you go and you adjust the rules a little bit more and you count players who were entering their age 27 season by the time they got traded and had made 3 All-Star teams already, it gets up to 9. And that wasn't even including the Deron Williams trade, which I think with the Melo trade really kicked off this era of player movement. All things told, you look at it on average, one of these guys gets moved again, 25 or under, or entering age 26 season, however you want to put it, has made multiple All-Star teams. One of these guys gets moved about every year to year and a half. This is the way things are. That's a pro Knicks point here. If indeed, as I heard, and we'll see what else comes out, that once RJ was off the table, it would have taken 4 unprotected picks and Quentin Grimes to get Mitchell in house. That's a pro Knicks point because I wouldn't want to do that. I know you wouldn't want to do that, and I don't think most Knicks fans would want to do that. So that's positive. And I think the fact that the Knicks, and this is the thing that could go both ways, the fact that the Knicks went into this with a process in mind where they're like, this is how we're going to go about doing this. This is how far we're willing to go. And this is how far we're not willing to go. And they stuck to that. And it's talk about something we don't even think about much anymore because his name doesn't get mentioned as often because for good reasons. Dolan didn't get involved. Or if he did, I mean, we certainly don't know it. And I don't think maybe he was checking in, but it's not like he said, Leon, do whatever it takes to get it done. I think that's a positive for the Knicks. There's a lot of positives for the Knicks here. On the negative side, I thought Benji put it best. He wrote, you could do everything right for the next 5 years and still not end up with a player of this caliber. And that's not Benji being down on RJ Barrett or down on Leon Rose or down on Jalen Brunson. That's Benji just speaking it like it is.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of teams who could do everything right for the next 5 years and not end up with a player as good offensively as Donovan Mitchell. That's one thing. And then the second thing, and this isn't a negative, but it is, and we've kind of said it already, it is what this trade will come down to. This is the last thing I'm going to say. They bet on RJ. I mean, when I dared dip my toe in the should we consider trading RJ Barrett waters 10 or 11 very long days ago, it seems. My point was, the reason I started to think about writing that piece, in addition to what I had heard about where they were potentially willing to go with RJ and 2 unprotected first, is, well, if we constantly talk about, well, even if they get Mitchell, they still need to trade for another star. Well, RJ's here, and if you're not at least wondering, like, oh, can he be that second star? Then it's more of a conversation. Now, there are a lot of people who think not only could he be the second star, there are people out there who believe he might be the number 1 star. There are people that are that high on RJ Barrett, and you know what? He works hard enough, and I think he has the right demeanor to the point where I am not pulling anything past him. And yet, the fact remains, they could have. I'm convinced. I can't say this for sure, but I'm convinced they could have included RJ in this deal, gone to 3 unprotecteds, maybe a protected, maybe a swap, maybe not. No other young players. I think that gets it done. And in that scenario, they would have all of their young players remaining. They would have 1 unprotected pick left. They would probably have, at the very least, a couple swaps. And that last pick they would have left, I would guess, would have been at 29. They decided not to go that route because they feel like keeping RJ here on this contract and allowing him to continue to grow with the franchise, that is their better chance of having success than trading him and those picks for Donovan Mitchell. We'll see if they bet right.
We will. Yeah. Again, I don't feel good, but I really don't feel bad. Like I guess that's kind of the best way I'd articulate it. It would have been nice. It would have been a luxury, but imagine we're sitting here talking about, well, it's 2025 and this team needs to make upgrades. It's like, well, they have like maybe 2 first-round picks that they can actually probably closer to 1 based on how the years shake out. It's rough. You have to depend a lot on the assets you're accumulating to be the talent you've already developed or drafted. Like, you basically have to hope someone like Obi Toppin or Quentin Grimes or Emmanuel Quickley, 3 players who, by the way, were also the Knicks are betting on their upside by not including them in a potential deal. Yeah. Doing so well that they overshadow any risk of, hey, we don't really have first-round picks to offer because they're in Utah. And that's a tall task, even if you believe in these 3 guys, and I do. It's really tough for them to be at a point where they surpass that of an unprotected first-round pick, because picks can be anything. Players are players. And what I mean by that is you could draft any player. You could trade the pick for. You can move up. You can move around. You can move out. The mystery box of the pick is tantalizing. And players, unless they're really good, and they can be good, it's just not as enticing. It can be positive for sure, but there's just oftentimes unprotected picks are treated like gold. That's why Danny Ainge was so adamant about getting 3 unprotected picks. And I'm sure he'll get more when he flips Colin Sexton, because let's face it, there will come a time where he doesn't want Colin Sexton. He doesn't need Colin Sexton. If anything, he would hope that Colin Sexton is going to soak up an insane amount of usage, and he'll probably
he's going to average 30 points a game.
And then Danny Ainge will probably net another first. And that's good for him. Like that is his prerogative. It's just a matter of, was that something the Knicks are willing to do? Were they willing to, if you switch places and do the same offer, would they have been willing to do it? Not same offer, obviously, but same caliber offer in terms of value. And they clearly weren't, because they took RJ Barrett off the table, and I was fine with that. And I still am.
On that point, I also feel pretty comfortable sitting here and saying, and I don't even have to say I'm reporting this, but like just using common sense, if the Knicks were willing to put on, well, actually, if the picks were in 23, 25, and 27, and the Knicks put in Obi, Quickley, and Grimes, probably still need to include a swap. Maybe.
I guess we'll never know.
I'm obviously wondering aloud if that would have gotten the trade done, and it's a what if. It's a what if. Okay, Andrew, where are we at?
We're here. We here, John.
I almost wore that shirt. I put this one on instead.
Well done. Before we get to the super chat, 2 thoughts. I want to just back up what Jeremy said. It's not so much that I'm not disappointed that Donovan Mitchell's not a Knick, because look, first of all, it just completely self-absorbed, and how I would have taken this, it just been really cool as a Mets fan to have the best player on the Knicks rooting for the Mets throughout the playoffs, as well as like for the rest of his contract. There's just an interest I have there. I would have loved to watch him be on the Knicks this season, but as bad as I feel, as good as I feel, whatever Jeremy just said, I don't feel bad, but it's like I don't feel good. I don't feel good about it, but I don't feel bad. That's what Jeremy just said. There was always going to be some talking ourselves into this working, at least for the initial part, with how good the East is. And that's the other point. I think the Cavs are going to be really good with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. Didn't we also conclude that the Cavs now can't extend Evan Mobley to a rookie max, that they can't have three guys on the roster like that? So what's the plan for them now?
They just have to take him into restricted free agency. Means they can't extend him a year. They can't early extend him.
I think they'll be good enough so that it won't matter. But I'm now curious what the Cavs ceiling is. And then if you'd like, we can dive into some super chats going forward.
Just the last thing, and I want to get it out there now because I don't want to. This is the only time I'm going to say this, because I don't want to mention Donovan Mitchell's name in post games this year. I just don't want to do it. This team is, as of right now, there's a very real chance they do not make the play-in. Forget the playoffs. There's a very real chance that they don't make the play-in.
What is it?
What chance?
Yeah. Who passes?
I don't know what the odds are, but they're higher than like 10 or 20%. I know that. Are you saying there's no world in which they could be?
It's not there's no world, but you said very real. That's not 10, 20%. That's giving me 90 to 80% chance that they will.
Oh, no. Okay. So I think there's, I don't know. Is there a 30% chance they don't make the play-in? Is there a 40% chance they don't make the play-in?
I go back to, they won 37 games and we all hated last year, and they got better. I'm not saying they're a shoo-in for the plan. I wouldn't sit here and say that, but I feel
it's a conversation, right?
Of course, it's a conversation. They don't have a game-changing player. They did not get Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, they are in that range of play-in or just missing it, but I think they'll make it. And
this team is ranked 23rd and 24th in offense, respectively, in the last 2 years. That number will go up, and the defense, I think, will stay the same. So I think there is a path for them to be a top 15, 16 net rating team, which would put them 7th, 8th, 9th in the East, and they should make it. I think they will make it, and I think they should. I think they should, and I think they will. But my point is, there's gonna be a lot of nights where we're gonna watch Knicks basketball and be like, man, this might be a bit of a slog tonight. This ain't looking so pretty. And that is a necessary reality of what just took place. That is a byproduct. Because if you have a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who has been on the team with the highest offensive, or at the very least, his on-court offensive rating the last 2 years has been higher than any team in basketball. I think it actually might be going back 3 years. That's not as much of a problem. And now we don't have him. And that's just a reality that we're all going to have to deal with. And there's going to be a lot of energy today and tomorrow and moving forward about, oh, good for the Knicks. They picked RJ, this and that, yada, yada, yada. I'm here for all of it. Just keep that same energy when they have 79 points with 10 minutes to go in some fucking game against the Magic in 2 or 3 months from now. And it's like, why is this team having such trouble scoring?
All right. Well, doom and gloom aside, you could do the flip version.
Doom and gloom. It's just a reality.
But it's not necessarily a reality.
That's why they wanted Donovan Mitchell. It wasn't for his defense.
They wanted Donovan Mitchell because he came available. They were not. We know now they were not planning on getting Donovan Mitchell when they conducted their free agency, and then Rudy Gobert was traded, and they decided to shift gears because they realized, hey, when a player this good is available and the price is working out, we should go get him. And the price didn't work out, and they didn't push it. And that's the point. And when you look at this team and you see that they're better, then to me, that's okay, great. We're seeing tangible growth. I get what you're saying. You're saying that, well, you don't have Donovan Mitchell. If you're losing games, like, that's what happens. Well, that's fine. What happens if the Knicks are just like, they get Donovan Mitchell and they're 7th or 6th seed, and that's great. And then they don't really grow that much. And then we're wondering, well, how do they take that next step that was so important with getting Donovan Mitchell? And then they're hamstrung because of the lack of picks that they have. And then maybe other players aren't quite as incentivized because the Knicks are stalling because they made that move a couple of years back where they're not doing things. Like, I hear exactly
Jeremy,
what you're saying.
I agree.
I know you agree. I know you do, but I'm saying that I don't even see it as growing pains. I just see it as a team that's simply getting better and improving on last year.
I phrased it poorly, and that's on me. My bad. My point is, let's all remember. I'm not saying you guys, all of us collectively as Knicks fans, to keep hey, we have a responsible front office who is thinking long term and thinking big picture, and that's what we have wanted for 20 fucking years. We have it now. We should be happy about it, even if you were desperate for Donovan Mitchell. Be happy about it, and like, let's remember that when the going gets tough. And I just want to remind people, the going might get a little tough. That's all I want to
understood.
say.
We brought an energy to John that I think was the hostile energy he's expecting later in the year. No, I'm trying to add levity. Don't worry, John. I'm the
now
energy
you're ready.
You're
you passed the test. Congratulations.
Later in the
Post
year,
games will be fun now.
Exactly.
You can do it.
When they're saying we should have traded for Donovan Mitchell, you're telling us now we shouldn't be saying that because there is pivot points. The words I hate to say, if they are in that 10% chance that you just laid out, not in the play-in, they have their pick this year. Like, they are able to gamble on that. I'm sure it's going to come up in the super chats and we'll get to it.
Well,
but there
won't be Leon Rose making that pick, but I digress.
Okay, maybe I gotta
follow
up.
No. Hold on.
Yeah,
we got to back up.
You think if they don't make the play-in this year, Leon Rose gets fired?
Do I think there's a chance? Yeah, I think there's a chance.
Then why didn't Dolan step in?
What? Because he trusts Leon.
Okay.
And Leon has told him, I'm sure, I would guess, I'm not sure of anything. I would guess Leon has told him throughout this whole thing, because I'm sure he's been checking in, like, yeah, we feel good about our team regardless of whether we get Donovan Mitchell or not. We'd feel even better about it if we got Donovan Mitchell, but we feel good about our team. I would just be curious to know if they miss the playoffs or the play-in for the second straight season. I'm not saying, I don't think he would necessarily. If I was saying it kind of jokingly. I wouldn't bet on him getting fired, but like, is it off the table now if they miss the play-in for the second straight year?
It would have to be
this. It is because they get the opportunity to pick a second head coach.
Okay. That's what I was going to say.
Surprise!
If
there's a head rolling, it's not Leon's first. It will be
okay. Thibs will not be coaching that lottery.
Right. I agree, but they get the opportunity unless there's gross misconduct or whatever ridiculous off the court basketball reason that might occur, which won't occur, or at least shouldn't. Like, Leon Rose will have the opportunity to pick a second head coach if it comes to that.
You're right.
You want to know the worst part, Jeremy? You say that jokingly, but because this is a Knicks podcast, it's not off the table for this franchise.
It's not like we haven't seen someone in a similar position.
No, I think I'll go against what I said, and I'll back up Jeremy. I think he's right. It took Phil pulling out every manner of shenanigan to get fired after 3 years. And I think Leon has Dolan's trust more than Phil, and I don't think he's going to pull any shenanigans, on top of the fact that he's done a much better job already than Phil ever did. So
Phil got 2 head coaches. Technically 3, but 2.
Yeah.
Fisher, Rambis, Hornacek.
100% agree. Jeremy said off the court misconduct. I was talking about Isaiah Thomas.
Yes, I know.
Next, it is funny you bring up Thibs, though, because our first super chat.
Oh, boy.
Harold Parmar. Thank you for the
Harmon
Parmar. Thank you for the contribution in the super chat. Wonder how different this offseason would have been if Thibs had played the kids and let us improve their values.
You could answer, Jeremy. I mean, I don't think it would be that different. I don't think Obi Toppin quickly. Grimes played a ton. That's the thing, is like, the guy that they wanted that in these talks the whole way, Quentin Grimes, he played as like there's no world where he should have played more than he did. He just got injured. and that's why he couldn't finish the season. I mean, he played a lot for a 25th pick. Do I think that if Quickly and Obi had played more, that the Jazz would have been coveting them so much more to the point that they would have been like, yeah, don't worry about those unprotected first round picks. We're just give us, future Amari Stoudemire, Obi Toppin, and we'll call it a day. No, I don't think that at all. I think these guys more or less are what they are within a range of like 10 to 15 percentile of varying outcomes.
I think it was a self-serving prophecy. How do we know? We don't, because they didn't play.
We don't know.
The Knicks had to shut down Kemba Walker and Nerlens Noel for the opportunity for other younger players to see time. Quentin Grimes didn't play significantly until COVID impacted the team. And then after that, there was the knee injury, and that was certainly unfortunate. But Cam Reddish also didn't play until other pieces around him were solved, not through the trade deadline.
Yes, Cam would have gotten
the next sentence out of my mouth was going to be, and that is on the front office because they brought him in and did not solve any other pieces. This isn't me trying to assassinate the character of Tom Thibodeau. This is me saying that if the Knicks found a way to create more playing time for someone like Obi Toppin, especially when Julius Randle didn't have it, and John, Lord knows he did not have it most nights, then it would have been really great to at least seen him blossom a little more. Or Emmanuel Quickly, who did not get the reins for I don't know why, because Alec Burks is suddenly the best point guard option the Knicks have. So
it sucked.
It more than sucked. It drastically impacts how people perceive this team at this juncture. And it's next year. It's up to the team next year to change that. That's the simple fact. Most of the players that Thibs played heavy minutes are not even on this fucking franchise anymore. That should tell you everything you need to know about how it got to that point. And they did not net assets in return. The cost of doing business was getting Jalen Brunson. Great. That's fine. I don't really care about the second round picks. It doesn't matter. But the point is that if they were that valuable, they would have gone for more, and they didn't. And the reason they didn't go for more was because they were put in positions that weren't the best for them to succeed, while the younger players sat on the bench or didn't get the minutes that they should have had to grow in the first place. And here we are.
And the question is, would it have made a material? I forget how we phrased it, but would it have made a material difference? My answer is still no.
I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know.
That's the answer. We don't know. Like you quoted Benji earlier, the night that they couldn't trade for Jaden Ivey, and it was because Alan Hahn reported the Knicks draft assets, the Knicks assets currently on the roster. Nobody knows what their ceilings are. They aren't valued as high. And Benji made the point. Well, the only way we find out how high their value is to actually play them.
I bet we're going to know a lot more about the value of these young kids 6 months from now. How about
I hope so. With one of them, a guy needs to not be here anymore, so that way
arguably two of them.
Fournier and Derrick Rose, so that way I forget someone. I apologize. I apologize that I don't remember who it was, but somebody made the point on Twitter today as I was scrolling before it blew up because of a Donovan Mitchell trade, that if you were to trade Derrick Rose, splitting the two guard minutes, the 96 minutes available between the two guard positions, between the three of Quickly, Donovan Mitchell, and Jalen Brunson is an option. They're obviously not going to do that now, but
I think it was Stacey.
So Stacey Patton
or Frank Bear, one of the two. I can't remember.
Regardless, exactly. Whichever one made it, actually was like, oh, that's actually not a bad idea. It's a very pro Quickly idea, but
I agree with John, by the way. I don't see Rose going anywhere. I think he will be here, and the opportunities will be there eventually for Quickly when Rose is inevitably hurt because he misses at least 20 games every year for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the play style, and you live with it because he's a really good player when he's healthy. He's a great person to have in the locker room. He's beloved around the league, so it's fine. It's just you have to wait for those opportunities for Rose to be hurt in order for Quickly to be able to take on more responsibility.
I love that Thibs is going to get the blame for not getting Donovan Mitchell.
Yes.
It's hysterical.
100%.
That is about that's can't write this shit.
It's not that the blame is that the Knicks were not willing to go for a third unprotected pick. That's the bottom line. And I don't even blame them for that. I would praise them for that.
I don't blame them either. The next question is going to be a good one. From CM, I think it was, right?
Yes, from CM.
Just relieved it's over. Is there a plan B to move on from Donovan Mitchell, or were we pursuing because he was available? My own opinion is I don't think it's not. I don't think that the Knicks are going to call up Sam Presti right now and be like, take take all the stuff that we were going to try to get Donovan Mitchell for. I don't think there's anybody else on the move.
For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to be clear.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, sorry. Yeah, I think plan B is moving on from, in no particular order, Julius Randle, Evan Fournier, and Cam Reddish. That's plan B.
Jeremy?
I think it's something along those lines. Again, I mentioned the Westbrook situation where you could find a way to leverage one of LA's first round picks by trading out salary that you have for players that they may want. And you banish Russell Westbrook. Some would say you buy him out or waive him. Knicks wouldn't buy him out. I wouldn't waive him either. I would give him the John Wall treatment, which is, listen, your salary is worth more as matching than you are as a talent. And it's not that we don't want you to go anywhere. It's that we have you under contract. You're not going to help us on the court. We can find a team that desperately does want to be below the salary cap next year if one exists. We'll see. We know the Knicks are probably going to be above the salary cap next year anyway. So, but a lot of the dynamic changes now. So we'll see. But I'm happy with it. I think there has to be a plan B. As we mentioned, there is a roster logjam of sorts. Got to solve it in some way. But yes, I'm with you. Randle, Fournier, and then I'd say Cam as well. But on a lesser extent. But still.
From Mifflin's, thank you for the contribution in the super chat. I trust the front office that they didn't give up more than they were comfortable, but it still hurts. Sad face emoji.
I think if you were to sum up the most consensus feelings amongst, for me at least, that one sentence does about as well as you could do.
I agree. Jay Bago, thank you for your contribution. As long as we trade Randle, I'm happy with the offseason. There's going to be a lot of that sentiment for the next couple of weeks.
So not getting Donovan Mitchell certainly stings. I don't care who you are. I mean, it kind of stinks that we don't get to watch Donovan Mitchell in a Knicks uniform, especially when, and that's the other part of this that is just like, it's not to the extent of the KD Kyrie summer, but it's different. And actually, I don't know, in ways it might be worse. We all kind of figured it was going to happen.
You think it's worse?
No, I don't. Let me refer.
I'm not trying to make you be literal.
No,
I'm genuinely just.
For months, everybody was like, "We're getting KD and Kyrie."
Oh, that's not completely off.
So the build up.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all
from the day of the Porzingis trade until June 30th. It was they're getting.
I think
Kyrie.
For most Knicks fans, and certainly for me, the fear was not we might not get Donovan Mitchell. The fear was we might overpay for Donovan Mitchell.
Agreed.
And the whole way, I was comforted by the fact that, hey, whatever happens, at least I get to watch Donovan Mitchell in a uniform next year. And now I do not get to do that, which is unfortunate. Anyway, I sidetracked us there. What was the question? I don't even think we answered it. Oh, as long as we trade Randle, I'm happy with the offseason. Yeah, that's how I don't know how that popped into my head. Melo is still out there. For many fans who are disappointed that they didn't get Donovan Mitchell, I bet you bringing back Melo for a retirement tour to a certain segment of the fan base, and maybe multiple segments of the fan base, will make them quite happy. And it'll put a, bit of lipstick on the thing. And that can happen if they trade Randle.
Okay. Needed that caveat. I'm the biggest Melo fan that you guys know at least. And I don't want Carmelo Anthony on this team if it means minutes over Obi Toppin.
Oh,
which
it wouldn't be.
What would happen. Yes.
Well, I mean, he wouldn't be starting over Obi.
No. You missed what I'm saying.
No,
I'm saying as is. The roster as is.
Oh,
they were
100%.
Tomorrow, Carmelo Anthony is signing with the Knicks. So he's now the backup power forward. Great. Obi DNPs. Can't wait for those post games.
Just if we want to live in the happy place for a minute, envisioning a Knicks team next year, with Jalen Brunson. Wow, this is fun now. If they do the rush trade, Jalen Brunson, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson starting, backed up by Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickley, Carmelo Anthony. I bet you they go with a 9-man rotation if this happens, as I say it will. Carmelo Anthony and Isaiah Hartenstein. That could be a lot of fun, right?
Yeah. Again, I'd still keep Cam in that situation. If there's a way for you to move Randle and Fournier out while keeping Cam, I think that's it. I know you're laughing. I get it. We saw the.
Can I say
Berman-
why I'm laughing? Because like I tweeted about Cam earlier today, and a whole bunch of people were like, "Oh, now you're happy you hate Cam." I don't hate Cam. I just don't think
I wasn't even
Knicks think
saying
very
it on
highly
that.
of him.
But I get it. It's more just if there's a way to keep him on the roster, because like
Yeah.
the only reason I would move Cam Reddish in this situation is if the Lakers said, all right, if we're giving up 2 of our picks, then we will give you Cam Reddish. Otherwise, it's not worth it to me.
I wonder more if they will need to include Cam to get the no.
What, for the math to work?
No. I know it. I know they don't need it for the math
For
to
what?
work.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
If I'm just curious about where the Lakers are at, because we know that they could do the deal with Indiana, but that's 2 picks. So like Randle and Fournier for 1 pick, they probably do that, right?
They might. I mean, I'm just kind of playing with it now, and I'll see what actually sticks, because I hadn't necessarily considered this too much. But
Yeah.
what about a 3-team deal where Randle goes to
Sure.
Charlotte?
And Hayward
Hayward goes.
would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, he could work off of LeBron, and you have Fournier going. Like again, the math will have to work out. I'll tinker with that as we get to the next question. Like,
Yeah,
that's the type of setup.
That's the one that makes more sense to me, because I don't think the Lakers want, regardless of what Randall's fit is on the court, I don't think everything that we've heard is reported. They don't want money past this year, like Randall's money.
No, that's different. Wait, the Lakers?
Yeah,
different story now. I think that changes because basically they're looking at a team that has less than max cap space regardless.
Yeah, they have $30 million.
So
it's not enough to make a max offer.
It's better for them to add more talent and then re-sign those players or extend them. Like Patrick Beverley, they could do the same thing the Timberwolves did, which was give him a 1-year extension.
Yep.
They could do that 6 months after the trade, and then they have salary filler they can use when presumably in the summer to flip him. And I just looked, by the way, for whatever it's worth, Russ to the Knicks, Hayward and Fournier to the Lakers, and Randle to the Hornets. It works. It works seamlessly.
Send it into the league.
I mean,
Bad eyesight.
Draft pick, but yeah. Sorry.
Bad eyesight. Thank you for the contribution. I wonder if getting Sexton for $72 million, a tradable contract, was a part of RJ. Was a part of it. RJ was never signing that, so I'm happy. It feels like Ainge was acting in good faith with us.
It's a different situation because Sexton's a free agent now, and RJ was looking for an extension. So for the math to work, Sexton had to have a certain dollar figure, and that was accomplished with this trade. Also with base year compensation.
For what it's worth, I think the value of RJ went down to some degree of significance to Utah once he signed the extension. Whereas if you were just looking at it from a valuation point of view, you could argue that Utah should have been happy about it because maybe if RJ gets traded there, he'd only demand the max. But then it gets us to what I had written about a couple days ago, or yesterday, I forget, which is that I think they intended on flipping RJ this season. And it becomes easier to do that if you're flipping him on the last year of the rookie deal than with this new extension. Yeah. Okay.
From Jesse Cook, what do we do with all those picks now?
I love this question.
Who's the next star to want out? John hinted at a couple guys the other night.
I mean, so I again, it's something I've been kind of playing around with. It's, Jaylen Brown's going to be a name that's out there. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to trade for Jaylen Brown, given that he is absolutely going to test unrestricted free agency in 2 years. And if the Knicks really want Jaylen Brown, they should make themselves have the cap space it would take to get Jaylen Brown. As far as the names that I would bet on, I think I wrote the other day that Ingram, SGA, and I would still put Cat in my top 3. Because if the Gobert thing, because now they're all in on, they don't have any other way to improve. And they're not trading Anthony Edwards and they're not trading Rudy Gobert. If they try the Twin Towers thing, and it just doesn't work, and they're like, shoot, we need to figure out a pivot here quickly because we've traded away all of our draft picks. and they would probably, I mean, but that comes down to like, do the Knicks really want Cat? I might put Cat number 1 on my like list of most likely stars to be at least hitting the market. I know SGA is like such an obvious name because they're tanking and this and that, but like, I don't know if Sam Presti wants a bunch more, picks, and he had to cut a good player this summer as it was. Who did he cut? Was it Isaiah Roby, or am I thinking of somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, yes, they had a roster issue, and he had to.
Yeah,
not that it was,
but it's only going to get worse moving forward. The roster issue that they have.
They have to consolidate, and they're not going to want to keep losing forever. I mean, this season they probably see the Chet Holmgren injury not as a blessing in disguise, so to speak, but they wanted one more year of we're not going to be a good team. So we'd love to develop Chet, but we also know that in the grand scheme of things, this does benefit us. And I was actually asked this, like, why is it that the Knicks aren't going after SGA with this offer they had for Donovan Mitchell? Well, think about that. It was 3 unprotected first just to get Donovan Mitchell. SGA, you have 5 years of his contract versus 3 years of team control. It's really hard to trade for that. We've never seen anything like that. The closest we came was Ben Simmons, and it was for James Harden. So that I get. The Wolves, I think they're going to stick through with having their Rudy Gobert and having Karl Anthony Towns. I see what you're saying 100%, but they're so locked into this group that I think they're going to keep trying it for 3 more years, 4 more years. At that point, yeah, I think anything goes. Once Gobert's kind of reached the twilight, or at least the end of his contract, 1,000% agree with you. But we've got enough time in between now and then where I don't see the Wolves, especially, and this is another big thing, as new ownership takes over, they're going to want a winner. They're not going to want to trade a piece. And it's with Jaylen Brown too, as well as with Karl Anthony Towns, there'd have to be a 3-team deal, because the Celtics, for example, if they're trading Jaylen Brown, it's for a player who's better than who he is. And then the Knicks would have to send out the picks, and it would have to be 3 teams.
I'm going to push back a little bit, only because I think there's logic to, if they try it this season and it really does not work in a way that they're like, think is potentially, it could improve to a championship level, I would think that they would want to get out of town sooner rather than later, while Gobert is still an elite presence, and really try to capitalize on whatever prime he has left. That's the only reason I would suggest that maybe they potentially do another shakeup sooner rather than later. And then what was the other thing I was going to say? Just keep an eye on Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, that I think that's fair.
Ingram,
I agree with you on Ingram, especially as the years go. But you never know. Like, he is, if you're the Pelicans, I think I said this before, like, he is the perfect age that you would want in order to keep Zion Williamson on the books. Like, you're looking, unless you can get a player who's drastically better, who's under contract for presumably longer than he is, which is 3 years.
And a good friend of Mr.
Yeah, I get it. I see what you're saying. I get it.
It's gonna come up at some point.
John, if there was something that were crazy, I would tell it to your face. This is not nuts. I don't want to push RJ out the door, but
of you.
But the logic, the logic of it does track. I will agree with you 100% on that. We've got a few steps to get there until we do, but I do hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
Benji just texted me the next star to want out is still Donovan Mitchell.
Man, I mean, but just before, very, very briefly, like, the East is still loaded, and I don't really have the bandwidth to do this right now, but like
Patreon.
Yes, Patreon. We'll do, but just very, very briefly, like, Milwaukee still better, Boston still better, Philly, I gotta think, still better, Miami probably still better.
They're better.
Okay.
I think they're better too. And then the team that plays about a 15-minute walk from where I currently am, they're the ultimate wild card, and then Toronto. Like, how big of a failure would it be if Cleveland is in the play-in this year? I'm not predicting that. I just want to be very clear. I'm not predicting that. But that would cause some news. Anyway.
Jay Boogie, thank you for your contribution in the super chat. I really don't know exactly how I feel. My whole entire Knicks life is so numb right now.
I feel that.
It's not because of we didn't get Mitchell or we didn't get Donovan. It's just that It's just as good as we are as a Knick family. Did I read that wrong?
Just as good as we are as a Knicks family. When is something good going to happen
for us? Yeah.
I'll answer. You know what the good thing is, Jay Boogie? The good thing that could happen, and oh my God, do I hope this happens so everybody could make me eat every freaking negative word I've ever said about the kid. RJ Barrett shows up this year and is like, I'm going to leave no doubt about it that the Knicks made the right decision. That's the good thing that has to happen. And I say it just like that on purpose. That has to happen because he comes out this year and it's not that. Then that's where it starts to get dicey, So,
friend of the pod and expert draft analyst Jonathan Wasserman tweeted as soon as the trade went down, blessing in disguise for New York. Whether that becomes the case or not, who is to say? But you could look at that angle and say, yeah, there's Donovan Mitchell. He would have been great, but the flexibility the Knicks have, and I know people will hate that word, but I'm not even talking about with the picks in the next few years. I'm talking about down the line where we're scratching our heads thinking of ways that the Knicks can grow as a team because, hey, remember when the Knicks traded for Carmelo Anthony? It was fine. The problem was what came next. And the Knicks never got out of their own way, and they were so hamstrung, and then they made dumbass moves like Bargnani, and it cratered. We had one really good season, and it wound up being still not even advancing past the second round. So they're not the same, that and what this would have been, but it just goes to show that you do still have an opportunity. You're not, okay, we're on Donovan Mitchell. What's next? You can still take step by step, and then eventually you can still get to the contention level in the next few years.
You know what we need to clip and put out on social, Andrew? When I said the words unprotected, future unprotected Knicks picks to Zach Lowe, and he made like a little noise, like a ooh, like that Zach does. If you want to go find that clip to make, if there are people who are feeling numb, like Jay Boogie today, I think that little ooh noise might make them feel a little bit better.
Shout out, friend of the pod, Zach Lowe, fellow Mets fan. Speaking of fellow Mets fan, Mensa Smith, giving Utah control of your draft for 5 years when it means you literally cannot keep all of.
Well, they can, yeah,
they can.
All of Darius Garland, Mobley, and Spida on max deals. Insanity. I do not love this for Cleveland, and I'm proud of Leon Rose.
Let's just say there is real downside risk for Cleveland, and I would imagine Cavs fans are throwing parades today, as and they have every right to do so. But just like I've been sitting here and talking about the Knicks bet on RJ Barrett, the Cavs are kind of betting big on Evan Mobley. And I think everybody loves Evan Mobley. I love Evan Mobley. Everybody who watched him play last year loves Evan Mobley. But man, if there were ever a situation where it was probably like, because what does Dan Gilbert want to do literally more than breathe? He wants to show LeBron James that he didn't need him to win a championship. And he saw an opportunity to do that, and he gave up quite literally everything he could give up that was of value to do that. And we're not a Cavs podcast, so we're not going to sit here and talk about like the Cavs depth or anything now that they've made this trade. But like, there are some questions to be asked still about that Cleveland roster. Yeah.
It's that, and it's also the flight risk. What happens if in 3 years, Donovan Mitchell? That's the big question for me that is unanswerable, but that I wonder with Donovan Mitchell. Because the Jazz, I know last season, newest Nick Jalen Brunson obliterated them, and then Luka Doncic helped put the fire, or helped set it ablaze even more. But the Jazz have had the number one offense in the NBA. They had arguably the best defender in the NBA in Rudy Gobert. They had pieces, and it didn't work out. And he still wanted to find a way to leave. We've known this for a while. So the question that I have is the issue for Donovan Mitchell that he just didn't want to be in Salt Lake City, or is it that he doesn't want to be in a small market? Because we've seen him find some, granted, regular season success, but still tremendous regular season success in Utah. And Cleveland's a nice city. I was just there a week ago. It's great. I
No,
recommend
it's
it. No, it is. It legitimately is.
It's not.
All right, listen,
I've been there
Joakim,
enough to say that.
Well, I had a family who took me around. Lovely time. Great host. Beautiful. Mwah. It's great. But in terms of that, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't have
France. It's
I'm sorry, I don't have-
Cleveland.
Oh, yes. Welcome to Cleveland.
I bet the croissants suck there too.
I mean, yeah, probably it's Cleveland. They didn't have. There's not like an actual signature Cleveland dish. But I digress.
But it's
Off the rails.
happening.
Yeah, we're talking about
Yes.
Cleveland. It's the sort of thing. Does he still want to move further east than where he's at, or is he comfortable just staying there? We don't know how he'll balance things. And from like a very 10,000 feet up salary cap perspective, there is still an opportunity that the Knicks could make, depending on how the salary cap rises and whatnot, where they could trade for a star in the next few years, and then they could do a sign and trade for Donovan Mitchell, and they bring him in that way. And I'll tell you, that would be a hell of a lot cheaper to get Donovan Mitchell that way than it would be trading for Donovan Mitchell now and then trading for another star versus trading for a star in a year or two or whatever, and then trading for Donovan Mitchell when he's a free agent. Lot to happen, but just interesting dynamics there.
According to the internet, the most iconic food of Cleveland is something called a Polish boy, which is a glorious, messy marriage of kielbasa, coleslaw, French fries, and barbecue sauce.
Yeah, hot dogs, sausages, they're big in the Midwest. So that makes sense. That tracks.
Cleveland sucks. Next question comes from Lunas and Marat. As annoyed as I am, giving unprotecteds in 25, 27, 20, and 29 and swaps in 26 and 28 would have terrified me. Leon, I feel now, is on the hot seat. I wonder if he calls OKC. We talked about the OKC thing a little bit. I don't think that's happening yet, but you never know. Leon moves moves quietly. Is he on the hot seat? No, I don't think he's on the hot seat, despite what I said offhandedly earlier. But I do think there's pressure on the Knicks to do well. To look
presentable.
Yes, we can't have another repeat of last year. And yes, I understand if we're 15 to 20 games into the season and it takes on the tenor of last year, then Tom, it'll be great hearing your analysis. On ABC. It's been lovely defending you every night, banging my head against the wall. But no, I guess what?
See if he wants to do post games with you.
Hey, let's get the invitation out now.
Call Berman.
Yeah, there's a trio.
That's your source.
John Berman and no, I'm saying that Berman on for it. Yeah,
no, I'm saying that's how you get to Thibs.
How you get to find out. Yeah.
I mean, look, the Knicks in the Melo trade, and I wrote about this. The Melo trade was not a bad trade. It was things that happened after the Melo trade that made it a bad trade after the fact. We'll be very clear about that. But they gave up in that trade less than half as much draft equity as they would have needed to give up in this trade. And what they gave up turned out to be extraordinarily punitive to their future without, I would argue, the requisite payoff that made it worth it. And so, again, if you're looking for reasons to be okay with what did or did not happen today, that's your reasoning.
And I would agree. He's not on the hot seat. I also, John, as you said, there's still moves that they would like to make between now and the start of the season. So if we can't even fully decide on what the grade this offseason would be, how can we determine whether he's on the hot seat or not? Which even still, he's not. There's nothing that I would see where he would be on the hot seat. It'd have to really go south for that to be the case. And as we just talked about, then the first head that rolls is the coach. That's usually how it works.
I'm just looking at Cleveland's roster. Assuming they start Isaac Okoro, their bench will be LeVert, good. Ricky Rubio, we'll see, coming off the ACL. Kevin Love, good. And then probably Dean Wade. Dean Wade is the truth. Chetty Osman. Actually, I shouldn't doubt, but that's a good team. But again, are they better than Toronto? I can't sit here and be like they're definitely better than Toronto. I don't know. We'll see.
Just one interesting thought. Just had it. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be the case or not, but like if you're Cleveland and you feel like you have enough rim protection because of what Evan Mobley can grow into, do you call up a team like Toronto, at the deadline and say, "Hey, OG Anunoby for Jared Allen. We know you need a center. We need, a wing that can handle the defense next to Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland." I don't know. I just spitballing here, but like they have pieces where they're limited, but they still have at least one really good piece they can move out and go from there. But that's their initiative. We'll see ours.
Yeah.
Relaxing nature sounds. Can't
love
wait
it.
for Jazz Cavs national TV game.
Oh my God. Yeah. They already put the,
They're going to have to take that. Yeah. Just,
that's not getting, that's
getting flexed.
That's getting flexed. Good call. Yeah.
Mike Kelly, the idea that another guy will come is so vague that I don't understand how a Knick fan can be okay right now. We are waiting for nothing. Jeremy, take this one.
Yeah, we're not waiting for nothing. That's the thing. We talk about how there are stars who are available. It's just, okay, cool. You got your star. Great. It's what next? What are we doing that's next that really gets this team? Because what is the end goal here? Is it to get a star or is it to win a championship? Cool, it's to win a championship. How are you going to do that? You need to take the necessary steps. You can't hamstring yourself for the instant gratification of Donovan Mitchell and, okay, well, we're having trouble down the line because we've traded these picks and we've now handcuffed ourselves. Again, if you really wanted Donovan Mitchell, I don't blame you. That's fine. That's cool. I wanted him, but not badly enough that the Cavs did, and I'm glad that that's the case for the Knicks. But it's not, oh, well, we're waiting for nothing. They still have these picks. They can still move up in the draft. They can still say, hey, there's someone who's available. We want to go after them and target them. I understand. You don't want to keep waiting for nothing until the point where no one ever comes and you have these picks that expire. But that's why the Knicks do need to consolidate picks, whether it's into players or into better picks. They've got to do something. But Mike, I understand where you're coming from. I very much disagree.
This is not something I spent a lot of time writing about or anything because I literally didn't really think about it. But I think the hope, because part of my argument in wanting to trade for Mitchell was that if you don't trade for him, then it's like, yeah, you wait to try to trade for the next star. And then if the logic is the same as it is now, then after you get that guy, then you still have to get another guy after that. At least if you get Mitchell, then you only have to worry about getting the next guy. I will put a silver line. I will flip that. And I will say this. I think the hope has to be now as a Knicks fan that in no particular order, well, in something of an order, RJ and Brunson, definitely those are the top two. RJ and Brunson, followed by, now in no particular order, Grimes, quickly, Obi, maybe whoever they trade for this summer, if they move Randle, Fournier, whatever else, maybe whoever they draft next year, whoever they draft in 2 years. That core makes it such that it is no longer about having to trade for 2 stars. Then it's about, man, that's a championship core that's missing a number 1 guy, and they only need 1 guy. And granted, there are only 6, 7, 8, 9-ish guys in the league at any given time who fit that sort of qualification. In theory, though, if things go right over the next couple of years and RJ does progress and like this team does look good this year and like they do make the play in and maybe make a little noise when they get there, then maybe you're on the road to that. And I think that at this point has to become the new ideal endgame for me, at least.
This goes along with that comment. G. Hooper, then, thank you for your contribution. Anyone saying they are happy or okay is just coping. 25 plus years of yearly disappointment and letdowns as a rabid fan. I'm just tired, man.
You can be tired. I'm not coping. I'm cool with it. I would have loved him here. But to say, okay, well, like, here's an actual question that we have talked about in the past. And even Chris Herring talked about this yesterday. How do you figure out where the line is that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert walked? Who was responsible for the other's success? They worked together, of course. We also haven't seen Donovan Mitchell, who, by all accounts, is a negative defender, but a superior player on offense, how he works through the flow of these things. It's not like this move didn't come without risk. Like, again, I get it. If you wanted him to be in the building, that's cool. But like, it's just feeling like, okay, there are still opportunities out there. It's not like this team is destitute with no young talent. They're building in the right direction. If we were talking about a team like the Knicks where they needed Donovan Mitchell to be the final piece to really solidify a fantastic core that's ready to take that next step, sure. But we're talking about how the Knicks might not even be 5th, 6th seed with Donovan Mitchell here, and then you got other things to figure out, and you have to deal with the financials. You know, like they'd have to probably move Cam Reddish. And again, I know if you feel like Cam Reddish is on the move, that's fine. Like I can live in a world where this Knicks team has a wing depth, a wing problem where there's just a dearth of wings. I cannot live in that world if Donovan Mitchell's here and there are no wings. That is a huge problem. It feels like a waste of a year. It's a stepping stone, but not a good one. And this is where I'm at.
I'm less concerned than you are about like the specific, like worrying about like wings next year. Like to me, well,
you have more faith in Thibs to bring it together.
I have more faith in Thibs, but it's also just more than that. It's just like if this trade had been made today, and there were 2 unprotected picks in the deal, I don't even think it wouldn't even matter to me what else was in the trade other than Mobley or Garland. I would be losing my shit. And I think I might be in the minority. I know whatever. I'd absolutely be losing my mind if Cleveland got Mitchell for 2 unprotected picks. They didn't get him for that. They got him for 3 unprotected picks and 2 unprotected swaps. It was literally everything that they could give up. And the rest of what they sent was also like, they sent a massive trade package. I understand it's going to be very annoying to watch Donovan Mitchell probably go off for all kinds of good scoring games next year. No one's going to be more annoyed by that than me. I promise you. But where the Knicks are at right now, it may have been inconvenient to be responsible, but it was still responsible to be responsible. And I know that sucks, but it is what it is.
If the Knicks were the Cavs and this were Cavs film school, I would want the Cavs to go all in on Donovan Mitchell.
Oh, 100. Yeah. 100%.
And I can't blame them one bit for doing it because they have the team in place to take that next step, and it's really meaningful. Yeah. And you know what else? They still have Evan Mobley on a rookie contract for the next 3 years. That's huge. It's gigantic.
Yeah.
They've got Jared Allen, who's making a nice amount of money. Don't get me wrong, but the value he provides it's really good. And now you've got Darius Garland, and you don't have to pay Colin Sexton too. And Kevin Love's contract comes off the books next year. So any financial issue that you might have, you deal with it for 1 year and you move on, and then you get to regroup from there. So it's just different. It's different. I can't blame the Cavs for doing it. And I can't blame the Knicks for walking away at that price point.
Okay.
Fern Rodriguez, in Leon we trust. How come no one in the media is saying the Cavs backcourt is too small? Garland is 6'1". # Randle gotta go.
Because they have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, who Evan Mobley, like I didn't watch a ton of him last year, but I trust the people that watched him more when they said that this guy has future defensive player of the year upside. Not saying he's going to get there, but when you have a guy like that who's that long and that has that ability to move around the court, it allows you to make a move like this today and feel like, and feel okay about it. But it'll still be an inconvenience, I'm sure.
From Johnny Chiba, I need more sour grapes to ease the gut punch. Like that. True Story J, Mac, relax. SGA is a better fit. Listen, if they get SGA, you can relax, but they might have to. Do you think they have to pay more to get SGA?
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
5 years. No. I wasn't saying that incredulously. I'm just saying, like, yes, that you've got 5 years of him. If he's that good, you got to pay a ton. Like I would, if I'm Sam Presti. I mean, also, if you think Danny Ainge negotiating with him for 3 years of Donovan Mitchell is really tough.
Oh yeah.
Negotiate with Sam Presti for 5 years of SGA, especially if we're talking about the height issue. You don't have that with SGA. Obviously, the shooting is better for Donovan Mitchell. Regardless, it's 2 more years of team control.
Oh wow. Well, it's Berman, so who knows? Yeah. Knicks withheld Quentin Grimes from all offers, per source.
So you know what that tells me?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm not saying the Knicks weren't interested in Donovan Mitchell. Clearly they were, but it feels like they were very much walking a line of, we know that the offers out there aren't what we can do. We're comfortable not giving you, going, okay, here's our final offer. And the Cavs came in and said, all right, yeah, if the Knicks aren't if this is the Knicks to lose, then let's let them lose it. We've got the pieces to make it work.
So Shams,
yeah,
reported a bit ago the last offer the Knicks put on the table was RJ, quickly, 2 unprotected first-round picks. So it was very clear here that the Knicks prioritize their own future draft equity to an extraordinary degree. And
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and if the Jazz came back and said we want 4 unprotecteds and Grimes, man, that's just it. Listen, the Knicks are bet that it's weird to say this because we talked so much already about like the Knicks are betting on RJ, and yet if you believe this report, which I don't know, believe it if you want, don't believe it if you don't want. The Knicks were really still, I'll say it now because I have nothing to lose. Like I had heard today that RJ isn't out of talks, but I don't know. Maybe I heard wrong. Maybe what I heard is not true. It's very interesting that it really did come down to the picks on both sides. And I think Quentin Grimes, I think the Knicks really like Quentin Grimes.
Yeah. It's fascinating that not only was Quentin Grimes out of talks, but that Emmanuel quickly was in talks. Because there were a lot of people, myself included, who just did not believe that the Knicks, if what Shams is saying is true, that they would put Emmanuel quickly in this type of package. And if they did, then that's a very different mindset. It was never like, oh, well, he's untouchable. It's just the connections he had with Donovan Mitchell, that West was here. Obviously, things only go so far, but just the idea that the Knicks were saying, no, we're not only cool with Emmanuel quickly going out to get Donovan Mitchell, we're cool with him not being with Donovan Mitchell on the same team because of the fact that they're very close. So I think it just goes to show that the Knicks are very committed to getting a star on their terms. And it's not like there's any player who's so untouchable in this deal that they really care. Like they could have withheld quickly and said, there's a time and a place where if we need to deal and we're comfortable with it. And they decided it could be now. And that's just different than what I thought. I was very much wrong about that.
It's weird because I do think they would have given up Grimes if hold on. We never heard any reports that they were willing to go 3 unprotected and Grimes, right?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so either. And I never heard that. It's just interesting.
But we never even heard that Quickly was potentially in the talks either. We know that the Jazz wanted 2 of Grimes, Quickly, and Toppin, but until this moment, I mean, it just was presumed that he would be out of the deal entirely. It's not the case.
Man,
the Knicks are really high on Quentin Grimes. Okay.
Nothing from G. Huber then. Just we don't get marquee free agents, and we won't trade for one. I empathize with that statement today. This is especially after 2 months of potentially getting Donovan Mitchell.
Okay, well, the counter for that is to build through the draft, is it not?
I'm empathizing with the statement.
I'm saying the statement, not with you. I'm saying, isn't the statement if you can't get marquee free agents and you can't trade for one, that you have to build through the draft? That's the other way to get talent. The Knicks have 11 first-round picks in the next 7 years.
And the highest,
and they don't tank.
The highest ceiling talent they have right now is RJ Barrett.
They've also found really good talent across the board.
Yeah, but they've got a star, Jeremy. Like we're not talking about the hitting on a Quentin Grimes or an Emmanuel Quickly or a Deuce
I understand that, but you can move up in the draft, can you not? What was the issue with the Knicks moving up in the draft last year?
They did not have the pieces, and we've seen
they didn't have the pieces to do. I understand how it works. I'm telling you though that if they don't have the pieces to move up, like if they had the same ammo they had right now to get Jaden Ivey, do you think Jaden Ivey would be on the Pistons or the Knicks?
Fair.
That's all I'm saying.
I don't know. I empathize with the fact that where the Knicks have shown philosophically to be as far as tanking is concerned, and that's my thoughts on taking his side. You can't argue with the math of where the better players are.
Sure.
I do, to back up your point, I do stand by a belief that like nail the pick you have. And you want to talk about getting Donovan Mitchell, could have got him in 2017. So
And SGA.
yeah, and we don't want to have that pod today. Ahmad Khalil. So we'd have had to trade RJ, Obi, and Grimes plus 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. So this is obviously put in like an hour, literally an hour ago. So this is before the report of Sean's coming out.
Okay.
Cuckoo, no brainer to walk away.
Yeah, I don't think it would have had to have been that much. But yeah.
Man, what's the reaction today if Ainge takes that offer? Quickly, RJ and 2 unprotected firsts.
It's a great question.
Shock.
Oh, it wouldn't shock me in the least.
No, I'm saying for the fans, shock would be the reaction.
A fan.
No,
right,
I'm saying the general fan base would be one of shock. You just signed RJ Barrett. Oh my, you're moving Emmanuel quickly too, and 2 unprotected first. That's what I'm getting at.
There's a poll in the YouTube chat right now. How are you feeling today? And there's good, price was too high, bad, needed a start, neutral, trust the process. I think more of the percentages right now are good, price was too high. So if the price being too high is RJ quickly and 2 unprotected first, then the reaction today would have been bad if they had made that trade.
And I'll go back to what I said after the RJ extension, after we did the live stream, I think, right, of the RJ extension thing, which was, I think Leon Rose cares about 2 things, and it's trying to put his team in the best position to win a championship and making the Knicks matter in New York again. I don't think he would have cared that the reaction amongst the diehard fans would have been one of not enthusiasm.
Yeah, and one more thing to think about, just in terms of with the picks, and when you're trading unprotected picks, you're essentially betting on that team to not be good, because that's the whole premise. You can get these picks, and no one knows Donovan Mitchell and what he wants more than the Utah Jazz. They know he's always wanted to go to a larger market. They know this. And I'm sure what they thought, and we talked about this. John, you mentioned it. If you trade with a smaller market team like the Cavs, the risk versus the reward of if he leaves, you're now looking at 2 unprotected firsts. Yeah, you've got Darius Garland, you've got Evan Mobley. They'll still be in good shape, but
they control,
it's tough.
They control 4 years worth of the Cavs draft unprotected after Donovan Mitchell's contract is over.
Yeah.
That is the frightening thought if you're a Cavs fan.
And I think that not only was the package too good for Danny Ainge, it was he knows that the odds of Donovan Mitchell leaving New York, if he's in New York, are slim. He knows Donovan Mitchell's a really good player, but he knows the odds of Donovan Mitchell potentially leaving Cleveland are higher than that of him leaving New York. And to that, plus the offer, it's a worthwhile gamble for him. And as I said to open the show on my part, kudos. Can't blame him whatsoever. He got the package he wanted.
Yep. Good for him.
Christian Cruz, it wasn't meant to be. There's no rush to send everything when we don't even truly know what we have. 100% buying Grimes stock in 2023.
So are the Knicks. You're in good company.
Yeah. Dom Cappuccini, thank you, fellas. Is it back to the Gordon Hayward drawing board?
Man,
start working on the PowerPoint, Jeremy.
I'll just say it now.
You're right.
I don't think there's any chance this team comes to training camp as is. I think it's a 0% chance.
I agree.
Yeah.
I hope.
As for Hayward, sure. I mean, look, we know the Knicks liked him. We know they tried to sign him in 2020. He's got a very different value with that contract than he did back then. But we'll see.
Elisa Calendar, understanding who you are as a team is extremely important. Rose understands who we are as a team. Would have been great to have Donovan Mitchell, but we could not afford to mortgage our future for him. It's a very rational response.
Very rational, but it's just, here's the only thing I'm going to say is, and it took me over an hour now to get to this point of not realization, but it is very clear that as much as the Jazz valued picks, This is, oh man, talk about irony. Everybody for the past 2 months has been saying the Knicks are the perfect trade partner with the Jazz, right? It turns out that they were not the perfect trade partner with the Jazz, because what the Jazz wanted, future unprotected picks of the Knicks, is the one thing the Knicks didn't want to give up. They were willing to give up Barrett. They were willing to give up Emmanuel quickly. We think they were willing to give up Obi Toppin. Quentin Grimes apparently was the deal breaker. Not to say that they value Grimes more than RJ, because obviously if they include RJ, that's their way of lessening the draft equity. But they were still willing to put RJ Barrett on the table, as they were those other two guys. So for as much as I want to sit here and I think a lot of Knicks fans would love to be like, man, Leon Rose is all in on this young core. I don't really believe that. I believe he did the right deal wasn't there to be made, and he walked away smartly. That is not to say that I don't believe in the young core. I do believe in these kids, but yeah,
and he does, but on his terms. And it goes back to the whole thing of, I know a lot of people wanted to talk about the 2023 firsts. The Jazz have 3 of them already. They never gave it.
And
look at what the picks that were given to them: 25, 27, and 29, distant future picks. So, and you know what? Probably come 2027, maybe 2028. That's probably when the Jazz will be ready to say, how can we trade for a star if we haven't gotten one in the draft already? And they'll have the assets for it.
That's the hot take.
No, it's not a hot take. It's
not. I'm thinking
What?
of something else. The hot take I'm waiting for is the Knicks should have drafted Ousmane Dieng or whoever instead of trading the pick for all the unprotecteds, because the unprotecteds, or the protected rather, didn't wind up mattering in this.
Not for this trade, but
not for this trade. You never know.
Who knows? Kevin McEwen. I'm glad this is over. We've got a front office that knows that's not about to screw us. Now, let's get rid of the vets and let the kids play. Let's go. What vets are? I'm guessing that's Fournier, Rose, Randle.
I don't think Rose goes anywhere, but Randle and Fournier, I think if you set the over-under for how many of them are going to be back next year, I think you set it at 1.5. And I might take the over.
Yeah.
Mr. Sean Hardy, priority number 1 for Leon. Get redacted off this team's stat. Man.
I think they want to.
What do I co-sign this?
I think they want to. I still think they want to do that. Again, if literally the only thing that we could say about this front office from top to bottom is they do things on their terms. And I don't think Randle will be any exception. I do not think that they will feel pressured to get Julius Randle off the team. I believe that they will, again, make a deal if it is a deal that they feel is the right deal for them to make.
I think the big thing as well, when the Knicks extended Randle, the prevailing thought was, well, they want to build around Randle. And I always felt, no, they don't. They want to build with him. They extended him to have team control. If they're willing to put RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly in deals, we know how they feel about Julius Randle. We know that they are more than willing to it's not even just listening. It's, yeah, we'll move him, but it's on our terms. Much like with RJ Barrett, much like with Emmanuel quickly, with Quentin Grimes, Obi Toppin, all these players. It's on their terms.
Yep.
Next up, Mr. Hush Zoo.
What's up, Hush?
Is there any interest in SGA? OG or SGA pivot? ? I can't see another year Randle and Fournier together. One of them has to go. I'm fine with the Knicks not trading 5 years worth of picks for Donovan Mitchell. You guys have also hit on it. I'll just say this. You guys have also hit on it. The 5 years that they would have had to trade if you're matching the Cavs offer. That's the thing that's even more scary.
And
regardless of whether you think the Knicks would have been able to extend Donovan Mitchell or re-sign him, that's the scary part.
And the unknown here, and this is why at the end of the day, the Knicks' final offer could very well have been not close to the Cavs' final offer. If the Cavs were, or if the Knicks were only offering 23 and 25, or even 24 and 26, that doesn't come close to the pick haul that the Cavs ended up giving up. And they were obviously trying. Again, they were trying. If you believe the reports, which I know not everybody does, it seems like they were trying to bridge that gap with RJ, and didn't happen. But regards to OG Anunoby, not yet. If he's a guy you bring in after you get the guy. He's not the guy.
Yeah, or he's the guy you trade for to then trade for the guy. If I know that seems a little convoluted, but sure. He's the stepping stone person.
Hush Zoo again. Leon has to do something before the season starts. The fandom is at a boiling point. Get rid of Randle, and things will definitely cool over. I gotta say, we did have conversations, whether they were fully serious or not, on the night of free agency, that if they're done at Hartenstein and Jalen Brunson, and then the only other thing they do is find a trade partner for Randle, that will be considered a success. Then the summer of Donovan Mitchell happened. To circle back, I do agree with the sentiment from Hush that if the only thing they end up doing, aside from what they did on the night of free agency, is getting Randle off this team for nothing too detrimental long term, I think I'd be more comfortable with it, and I think the fan base, the majority, would be more comfortable with it. What say you guys?
Yeah. If they got rid of Randle and it was decent trade, which I can't imagine one that's not a decent trade, I'd be cool with it.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be easier. It's an easier sell to move Randle if you have Donovan Mitchell than it is to have Randle and not Donovan Mitchell. If it's the right move, and by right move, I mean if it's the right way to get him out of here on the Knicks terms, then sure. But I can understand the sentiment of talk about trading for Jaden Ivey, don't acquire Jaden Ivey. Talk about trading for Donovan Mitchell, don't trade Donovan Mitchell. Talk about trading Julius Randle, Julius Randle's still here. It overshadows the good, which is good, in Jalen Brunson and Isaiah Hartenstein. Those are two really, Brunson especially, but Hartenstein's a good player too. And the internal development is kind of left out. But I would understand if a fan were walking away feeling, for lack of a better word, blue-balled from this offseason, because we talked about avenues they can acquire potential or actual stars. And there's all this talk, and it's been built up, and didn't or doesn't happen. So I get it.
Can Gordon Hayward opt out at the end of this year?
No, it's all guaranteed.
No, so it's 2 years.
He wouldn't even if he could. But yeah,
I figured. I just didn't know.
It's straight.
Usually we
straight
see in
4
a
years.
4-year deal, it's 3+1, and with him, it's not. So if you're
100%.
trading 4 years of Randle, it's for 2 years of Hayward.
Again, I'm still of the belief that Randle opts out. I know it's a different
3+1, 3+1, yeah,
100%, yeah. But that's and the reason I see him opting out is because he'll be older. He'll want to secure a long-term deal. There'll be the new cap spike. There's reason to believe he could.
That's why,
all those
Jeremy.
things. Yes.
The cap spike.
Sure, but also if there's a difference between signing a contract at 31 and 32. That's what
I agree. I'm saying the number one reason on that
Yeah.
list for him to opt out is because we're
More
talking
money.
in 3 years, it's gonna spike at least $30 million.
We'll see, but it
Yeah.
should spike. Yeah.
True story, Jay. Not as sexy, but OG fits the
Lot of
team
OG
better
love,
than
man.
Spida.
I'd be really surprised if that was the direction that they. Again, you're dealing with Masai Ujiri, who, there's something of a history of what happened with Dolan, and putting the kibosh on the Lowry trade. But even aside from that, if the Raptors are trading OG Anunoby, they're trading him because they're getting a good amount back. Now, he's a guy that's absolutely going to hit unrestricted free agency in 2 years. He's not going to extend because his number is too low, he's not going to extend. So if they really deem him a flight risk, they will trade him. I just wonder. I don't know. They don't strike me as a team who wants to get worse. They strike me as a team that wants to continue getting better. But would I put it past Masai to take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward in the long term? I don't know. Maybe not. But I don't know. I don't see it.
Well, what do the Raptors want? It's a center. Like the Knicks can't do that. They can't move a player like Mitchell Robinson until December.
Yeah. That's not happening now anyway. The OG.
It's not. It's more right.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the fit, and again, OG Anunoby is a really good player. It's fascinating. I know it's not necessarily deemed as like OG Anunoby and SGA are in the same tier because they're mentioned in the same sentence. But like you, I'm surprised to see how much attention is being given towards him. It's just surprising.
So we're going to reset a little bit because we're behind on Super Chats and we want to get to everybody. Thank you, everyone. Still over 900 people with us live, watching with us on YouTube, as well as a bunch more watching with us on Twitter and on Facebook. So let's rapid fire some of these super chats, and we'll go
Can
around.
I just give something a little
around
something
the
I just
table.
heard?
Yes, absolutely. You can give us a little something, John.
God, I don't want to.
I'm not going to tweet it out. I promise. I'm not going to do that to you. The joke got killed because people on draft night are morons. So
I mean, to be
fair, I was, but
there was no context if they weren't.
But the continuous joke from last year was John offhandedly says a thing, and if you don't get the show, in the words of Poppy Lebitard, you don't get the show.
I strongly believe, I'll say that, I strongly believe that there will be every effort made within reason to get rid of Julius Randle before the season starts. And I will just say that.
All right. I'm not going to do it. Clip team, you know what to do. It won't be official from KFS, but clip team, people who know how to screen record and cut things off, or if you have an Adobe account, you know what to do. I'll go first. Mike Jameson, honestly relieved we're not getting Spida, gives us a chance to grow with our young guys and allows Obi a chance to be the power forward of the future. If you believe what some of us on this live stream strongly believe, yes, Obi will get a chance to do so.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Indeed. John, read this one.
Kevin Danishevsky as Grimes Hive president. He's here. Let's fucking go. So if, as the president of the Grimes Hive, you arguably should be happier than literally anybody else today, because by all indications, you got your dude is the one they didn't want to give up. So good job by you.
Jeremy.
Alex, priority number 1 is trading Randle, or this is a failed offseason for Leon. Focus on build up the young players. If Thibs can't do that, he'll be gone by Christmas. Leon won't be safe, and JB takes over. I still say priority number 1. I get it is priority number 1. It's not a failed off season if he's still here, because again, the Knicks needed a point guard and they've gotten the best one they've had in 15 years. But yes, commitment to the youth, very vital. Moving Randle would certainly help with the Obi factor of it. We haven't really talked about the season ahead because we've been so focused on Donovan Mitchell. There are a few quote unquote easy games for the Knicks as the season starts, but it's a
games
tough
2, 3, and 4.
That's the sweet spot. And then it gets pretty tough. And there's a West Coast swing.
Oh.
So
how about this? At Cleveland, game number 6. It's a Sunday nighter. Love it.
There you go.
Oh, Knicks Cavs.
Yeah.
Knicks, Cavs.
Okay.
They play 33 games before Christmas. What would Thibs have to go to get fired by Christmas? 12 and 21?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Literally, I was about to say 10 and 23.
Yeah. Alex. Oh wait, we just read
the one we just read.
Okay. Fern Rodriguez, what's going on? Thank you for the contribution, Fern.
Skip me in the order, John. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
Clearly, front office is betting on the kids, as John mentioned. To some extent, yes. So what happens when Thibs plays Rose 25 minutes, Randle 39 minutes, and Fournier 30 minutes a game in game 1? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. And I mean, there's no question about that. Thibs' seat is on the hotter side, so he could only do so much of his chicanery.
Dan Hidalgo, I'm okay with this. Mitchell, Brunson were never going to be a good fit. We have young talent, draft picks, and there's no need to rush this. I get that there's two sides of the coin. I like that we have some patience as part of the fan base as well. I think that sentiment is allowed to happen. I am so glad that Jeremy gets to read this next one.
From Robert Cross. Heart emoji, hashtag 53 wins. I know Robert is very happy right now. So here's to you, Robert.
There are many more Robert Crosses to come. Jeremy, I'm actually make you read the next one as well, because it's directly addressed to you.
Oh, all right. Ryan Menzies. They don't have a game-changing player, Jeremy. Why do you hate Trevor Keels?
Yes. I like it.
Yep. That two-way punk. One day he'll get his moment. But until then, he's two-way.
John, I know you have to. We all had evenings planned, but John, I know you have to read this and then take off.
No, I got another couple of me. SB Gorilla, thank you so much for the contribution. I would be lying if I said I wasn't happy about nothing happening. To give up a treasure chest of picks as well as the farm would hurt. Evan, Rose, Cam, and Randle for Westbrook, none, and 2 first-round picks if possible. I think so. My own personal opinion, I think if they could get 2 firsts from the Lakers for taking on Russ, I think they would do it in a heartbeat. But I have suspicion about whether the Lakers would put 2 first-round picks on the table to take that package. And I wonder if they had a choice to either do a Lakers trade in which they get a first-round pick, unprotected first-round pick, or send Randle somewhere else while giving a protected first-round pick to someone to take on Randle. I wonder which of those 2 options they would choose.
It's fair.
Hush Zoo. Now that Mitchell is gone, can you guys name a player you can see the Knicks can go after with our picks? Not SGA or OG that I've been preaching on. Haha. We've asked and answered throughout the stream.
I'll
Brandon
still
Ingram,
say
Carl Anthony
Cat.
Towns. Yeah,
I think it's got.
I think
Ingram.
I think the clear thing that can be said, it's nobody now. Like nobody, there's no pivot in the next week or so. The summer of trading for a star is over. Whether that's the trade deadline that becomes the trade deadline of trading for a star, or the next summer of trading for a star, we shall see. The Knicks still have said treasure chest available.
We have some.
What's up?
Why do you hate Russell Westbrook?
We have some more news from Woj.
Okay.
So I'll read it really quick.
Yeah.
So they were inching closer on Sunday going into Monday. New York balked on including Quentin Grimes into the trade with RJ Barrett to acquire Mitchell, sources said. And just as a reminder, RJ extended on the news was Monday night. Yeah, okay. When guard Emmanuel Quickley was proposed as a replacement for Grimes in the trade, Utah wanted 3 unprotected first-round picks as part of the package. But New York would only do a 3rd first-round pick that included top 5 protection, sources said. Those packages would have included 2 second-round picks, 2 pick swaps, and 2 expiring contracts from a 3rd team, sources said. New York would have moved out Evan Fournier and first round pick to a 3rd team to spare Utah taking on Fournier's remaining $37 million. So it would have been. So they would have had to give up 3 firsts, 2 swaps. Okay.
Jeremy, thoughts?
They just didn't want Evan Fournier's contract. They didn't want to figure out a way to have to flip it. Which, I mean, I got to be honest. How in their minds Evan Fournier is harder to flip than what would presumably be Lauri Markkanen, I don't quite understand. But he was not the prize. He was salary filler that helped them get 3 unprotected firsts and Colin Sexton, who they will eventually flip as well. And they got Agbaji. And again, Markkanen was just how you make the math work.
And this is also notable that according to Woj, the New York and Cleveland never engaged again after Monday night.
New York and Utah.
New York and Utah.
Sorry. New York and
Okay.
Utah.
Makes
Jeremy,
sense.
read the next one.
From Frank Corona Jr. The most upsetting part about the no trade is now I have a stargaze again, hoping a Zion, Giannis, or Luka type becomes available.
Luka will always continue to be a name I'm going to keep an eye on just because. But yeah.
Well, I'll tell you.
Not Luka. Zion. I meant to say Zion.
Oh, okay.
I love Luka.
Freudian slip, though.
Yeah, Freudian slip indeed.
Yeah.
There's no trade happening with the Knicks and Mavericks anytime soon.
No.
Maybe ever.
Maybe a sign and trade. A non-tampering one in 2027.
Well, even then,
it was.
How long can Mark Cuban hold a grudge?
I mean, if Luka Doncic wants to go somewhere and it takes a sign and trade, it will happen.
Right, but I'm literally saying, okay, I see what you're saying. So if the only way to get Luka is a sign and trade, and Luka's forcing it, then fine. I think Cuban would be so petty just to be like, all right, screw you. Like, I will go stay home for the summer or for the season. I would rather that than you go to the Knicks and them do this again.
It's also very rare to trade a star of his caliber with even 1 year remaining, even
Mhm.
half of a year, or at the deadline. It just, you don't quit on talent like that unless it's a Kawhi Leonard type situation where you're a small market team, you know he's gone. All right, it's a year left. Let's get something for him. Other than that, they pretty much stay there, and then teams say we either stay with us or we'll try to get something of value back.
That, and to the Kawhi point, he also just spent a season forcing our hand, not playing, where he's proven I will sit out next season too and test free agency.
Yeah.
I'm rereading this. It feels like the Knicks don't have Donovan Mitchell because they were insisting on top 5 protections
In the third pick that they were offering?
Yeah. That hurts.
Really?
A little bit.
Why?
Well, I guess maybe it doesn't hurt that much because that was as of Monday night. And you could argue that, and I did kind of intimate this before, that what Cleveland ended up giving them was so far and above where the two sides left off, which is probably why the Jazz didn't re-engage with the Knicks. Or who knows, maybe Cleveland said either take it or leave it. It's just interesting that the Knicks were apparently willing to, okay, again, according to this, and we don't know if it's ever 100%, but like they were willing to do Barrett quickly and 3 firsts, with one of those firsts being protected. And 2 swaps.
And the years on the first were,
We don't know.
okay.
Probably, I would guess that they would have been either 23, 25, 27, or 24, 26, and 29, or 28.
So it's Barrett.
What if
ahead,
they
Jimmy.
wanted 25, 27, 29?
And the third year
possible.
protection is 29.
Yeah. It's
possible.
The Knicks said top 5, and the Cavs were like, nah, just take it. And then that's a difference maker.
And it's also interesting that they could have done RJ and Grimes and 2 firsts.
2 unprotected, and then what you heard, the 3 protected. Again, I'm curious. I will always think of what our live stream would have been like had Danny Ainge either said sure to Fournier, RJ, and 5 picks. No, just the one that you got heard the other night, 5 picks. Or if the Knicks then say yes to fine, here's Grimes. Deal's done. What is the reaction on here? If it's 5 picks, 2 unprotected, and then RJ, Fournier, Quentin Grimes. Man, you got to jump off?
I'll read one more.
One more. Perfect guy to read the last.
Hey, Robert Cross. What's going on, Robert? Prediction. Not giving up Grimes and 3 unprotected firsts will turn out to be one of the best decisions Leon makes during his tenure. Hashtag 53 wins.
Robert Cross starts it with prediction because you've never made a prediction on these streams, Robert.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, the last thing I'll say before I get out of here, it is very clear that the Knicks really did want Donovan Mitchell a lot. And I think they thought they were going to get him. But they were responsible, which is a good thing, right? So here we are.
I don't think your daughter thinks it was very responsible.
No. I got to run. Unfortunately, you guys, Godspeed the rest of this. Apologies to everybody if you have a super chat directed at me that I'm not going to be able to answer, but I'm leaving you in fantastic hands.
We know you enough to answer as best as possibly for you. Don't worry. They're asking all of us questions. Don't worry.
Awesome.
Have a good night, John.
See you, John.
Talk to you later.
All right. And then there were 2, Jeremy. All right. So now that John's gone, how excited are you that they didn't get? I'm kidding. I'll go first. Dom Cappuccini. Clearly Rose has shown some pickiness on an all-star trade values. Pickiness on all-star trade values. Murray and now Spida. Is this an encouraging sign, or is their process doomed to wear thin on all by this time next year? Jeremy, what do you think?
I think at a certain point, fans will want to see some more than what the Knicks can provide. whether it's through the draft or an established star. There needs to be someone who kind of progresses this core. Who that is, though, really not sure.
Man, I will say you hit it on process, because this got compared to the Melo trade a lot by some places. And look, like, people on ESPN yelling aside, I don't think there actually were a lot of intelligent basketball minds saying, like, the Knicks have to do this trade because they need a star. There was considerable risk considered in all of this. The difference, and I'll again, you just said it, at least how I see it, is that when Walsh came here, like, the first big moves he made were, okay, clearing out cap space. Jamal Crawford, gone. Zach Randolph, gone. A future first-round pick to get Jared Jeffries, gone. And we're lined up, and the main plan is summer 2020 or summer 2010. And Leon hasn't done that. The process has shown that you can walk away from this. I said this with Favali last night. Am I allowed to be disappointed, but at the end of the day, okay, if Leon Rose says this is too rich for my blood, like, I'm walking away from the table with this, and I'll, take what I have to the next negotiation. I think that's more where I land on it at this point. Jeremy, you go.
From Michael, John was so thirsty the entire saga. Can see the disappointment in his face. It's okay, buddy. We can't trade all draft assets from 24 to 29 for an 8th seed. John knows that. Listen, he really wanted Donovan Mitchell, like a lot of other people did, but he even has his limitations too. And as we discussed, the Cavs wanted Donovan Mitchell more. They put more on the table. They were more prepared based on where they're currently at right now. Can't blame them.
I that is a question for John, but you nailed it. I'm
sticking with John. I get it.
I think at this point I get it. I don't know. I'm at the point where I understand if people like John built up the expectation, and Doug, like, as analytically inclined as he is, and allows as film driven as some people are, saw the ceiling of this team with Donovan Mitchell higher, obviously, than the ceiling we saw last year, at least the floor of this team being higher. Yay, I get to read this one because it's addressed to me. Robert Cross, GMAC. Can we make a t-shirt for Cutlets? Jeremy is Cutlets, by the way, because my favorite member of KFS is SIZZLINJ. NG. Hashtag 53 wins. You're sizzling, Jeremy.
Yeah, honestly, the growth, or the growth and value that I've had in the depth chart that is Robert Cross's favorite KFS members. It's tremendous. I've really come a long way. So thank you, Robert.
I believe you've officially taken over. Like, you've accomplished.
Oh, he said
you've
favorite.
Set to.
Yeah,
you've accomplished everything you need to accomplish here at KFS.
I've kicked the competition.
There you go. You're up.
Haitian Ferg, disappointed, not mad. The juice was not worth the squeeze. This trade would have crippled us. Remove all emotion, and you'll see that pulling out was right.
525 votes on this poll in the chat. How are you feeling today? 48% good. Price was way too high. 34% neutral. Trust the process. 17% bad. Needed to get a star. That seems to be the direction.
I mean, it's what, 83% of
people
that
are either neutral
not
or
bad.
Good. Yeah.
That should tell you how people are feeling.
Yeah.
It does.
Once again, Robert Cross, I am taking the over in Vegas with not a care in the world. Hashtag 53 wins. Without even looking, I can guarantee, Robert, 53 is over what the Knicks will be projected to win this year. Good. One for you.
Robert Cross, welcome back. The sky is not falling. We should be focused on getting Mr. Grumpy off the roster. Mr. Grumpy, of course, is Julius Randle. If Obi was starting, we would be more than fine this year. Hashtag 53 wins. Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what Obi's role is, but I think that if the whole point is you're not trading the younger players to get a star, fans can get behind that. If you're not trading the younger players and not giving them the opportunity that they deserve in year 3 or year 2, then what are you doing? So yes, I would hope, or at least like to believe, that they will find an opportunity for Randle elsewhere to give Obi that chance. Just now that this is behind us, we'll see what the next one is.
This is the number one question people ask me, like in my personal life, is like, can they get rid of Randle? And I lean on, well, John and Jeremy said, and because you guys see a way, I will trust I will also trust that a way is possible and could potentially happen. Robert Cross, this super chat is to let all of NYK fandom know that I'm smiling ear to ear. Hashtag 53 wins. Thank you, Robert Cross. Oh, there's more, Jeremy. Don't worry.
Oh, I bet.
There's way more coming from our king. You're up.
Frank Sound. No guarantee that Mitchell would have re-signed in 3 years. People miss the aspect that Donovan Mitchell could have dictated his next salary. Extreme risk territory. I'll push back on this because, again, if Mitchell really wanted to go to a larger market, it's New York or Miami, and sure, he could go to Miami and play with Bam Adebayo, and there probably wouldn't be a lot of other depth that's there, and Jimmy Butler would still be presumably under contract for a little bit, so that might even be a little tricky towards how they get their money and Tyler Hero, but I digress. I think that if money was not really the problem for Mitchell, it was more about getting him in the building. The Knicks would have been fine giving him a max contract because he's a max player, and they're right to think that, and he just is. So I don't, if we're talking about risk in terms of he's a smaller guard, fitting him next to maybe someone like Brunson, especially if you're not trading Brunson or wondering about the long-term impact of how having a smaller guard might help you contend, that makes sense. As opposed to the financial aspect or leveraging the Knicks would have presented a max to him the moment free agency opened. So, and they probably would have back channeled it beforehand saying, we're giving you a max. It would have just been understood. So it's not really a risk to me in terms of trading for him to not sign him. But if you're a team like Cleveland, there is that risk, and we'll see how that pans out for them.
There's no world where the Knicks trade for Donovan Mitchell and it's not understood he's extending in a couple of years. Like, so much would have to go wrong. So much would have to go wrong for in 3 years he'd be like, I actually don't want to play in New York anymore, you know? Yeah. So we'll see. Kenneth Antigua. Ainge dragged this out to get another team to overpay, and it worked. Never wanted to deal with New York. Hated him in Boston, Phoenix, and now Utah. Phoenix is funny. The playing day, Danny Ainge. Yep. Look, I'll say this. As someone who didn't get involved in the discourse, but saw the discourse between prominent members of Knicks Twitter and Jazz Twitter, there is not a lot of crow, because maybe that's not the right level to go to, that we have egg on our faces, Knicks fans, that Danny Ainge got what he wanted. I will say, just credit where credit is due, that there was always confidence nationally and obviously in Utah that Ainge will win the trade. And regardless of what the Cavs ceiling is now, as far as getting the most that he wanted or getting the exact package that he wanted, he got it. So I at least credit him for being able to do that despite, 2 months of negotiating with the Knicks for what they weren't willing to give up. He did find a different team that was willing to give him what he wanted. And as annoying as it is, as far as him, playing poker with the Knicks for 2 months, then getting up and going to like the blackjack table and hitting on the first hand, I credit. I got to just commend him for negotiating, getting the deal he wanted for a trade like this,
Sure. I just hope we can finally put the kibosh on the Knicks are desperate for a star. Because if the Knicks were desperate for a star, Donovan Mitchell would be in New York right now.
Absolutely.
They're not. Yeah. They're desperate for a star on their terms. And that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to put a ticker up. I'll let you read the next question. So, the next question's... I scrolled down too far. Next question is for you. And
all right.
Guess who?
From Robert Cross, 3 unprotected first plus Grimes plus whatever is overpaying for Donovan Mitchell. I'm sure Robert would even more so agree that the unprotected with IQ and RJ, 2 of them instead of 3, would also be overpaying. The fact that Grimes wasn't even really included in this, it doesn't tell me the Knicks weren't serious. It just feels like they were serious enough, but like, all right, when if it really needs to get there and really needs to get there, then we'll finally put him in. But at the same time, if he was not present in any of the deals, then I guess they just didn't want to involve him. They don't like him that much.
Yeah. Ray Marcano at the very end of this, I would have to scroll all the way down, but I'm going to read a super chat now. You guys are beasts. 2 hours in. I want what Robert Cross is smoking because the Knicks are a 37 win team at best. Hashtag 37 wins, but hashtag dump redacted. Shout out Ray Marcano, member of the Knicks Film School Town Hall from last night. Also Robert Cross, member of the Knicks Film School Town Hall. And then for me, from Rev John Ortiz, glad the drama is over. Can we now trade Randle? Shout out to my brother. Hashtag Claudio Rocks. Thank you, Reverend Ortiz. One of my best friends chiming in with a super chat. And it works out perfect because then Jeremy, this is for you.
Robert Cross. This super chat is just to let my good friend John know that I am in a happy place right now. Well, hashtag 53 wins. I'm sure John knows it.
Yeah.
Even though he's not here to see it, he knows it.
Jeremy E., arguably the biggest defender and promoter of the RJ Barrett hive. Given the plethora of protected picks, are the Knicks more likely to attach one of them to move off Randle? This is a good question for you. Also, thanks for the great content throughout this saga. You're welcome.
I don't see them attaching a first to move off of Randle.
Thought you wouldn't.
Again, there's a sunk cost to it as well. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, we know that it didn't work out with Kemba and Nerlens Noel, and we'll move Burks as well. But the biggest reason behind that is we want to get Jalen Brunson. We want to do it so we upgrade. I get the idea of, well, if you move a first with Randle, then you play Obi, which can be an upgrade. But I'm sorry, I don't see the Knicks using one of the first round picks that they've acquired in some manner to move off of Julius Randle when I think there are other ways to do it. Like, I go back to the Westbrook trade that I proposed, where you move Randle to another place, you get Westbrook, other salaries like Fournier go out, Hayward goes to LA, maybe even Cam Reddish goes to LA. Like, there's a pathway for you to do that without having to attach first. And in fact, you could potentially even get a first round pick out of it. You just have to be smart about how you do it. And that's the way to do it. Not like, all right, let's find a team that's willing to take on the risk that's Julius Randle. Because what happens if Julius Randle just isn't as bad as last year and the team that has him has a first round pick? And you could have just had Julius Randle and not traded a first round pick. So, fellow Jeremy, I'm not there yet. So
my counter is a question.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 4 protected picks they have, Dallas, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Washington, what would you say is the worst of the 4?
Milwaukee.
So you wouldn't mind, you would be against trading Milwaukee's late first and Julius if it meant getting Julius off, so that way the roster can consolidate a little more?
Yeah, I would be against it. Because also it's, well, what are you bringing back? How does it work within the team dynamic?
Wouldn't you argue that getting a guy that last season at least was a net neutral across net negative across the board as far as detrimental to other players too?
I get that, but the market for a lot of these teams is, I don't want to say it's dead, but a lot of these teams are dealing with salaries that they've just signed. So what team is looking to get Julius Randle as a fit and move other pieces? Like, you could talk about Phoenix, but it would require them to move Crowder and Saric and I believe Payne to make the math work. The Knicks, we're already talking about they have too many people on the roster and we need to pare it down a little bit. So it's a 3-team deal. And then, well, what's coming back? It's just, there's a lot going on. Whereas I see 3 teams that have 3 bloated contracts, all of which work in different ways for other ones. And if you swap them, you could find a pairing.
We'll see how this weekend goes. But just a little behind the scenes, we have 2 guests lined up that are content creators for other Blue Wire podcasts and our other markets. The entire point was to try and find a Randle partner. So the thing I'll go back to that backs up your point, we obviously in Knicks land see him as so negative an asset that we're asking this question. And yet there is a Phoenix tweet out there. Like, could we get Randle for this, and a first? Like, you might actually be able to net a Julius Randle, a first round pick for Julius Randle, rather than feeling you have to give away a first round pick in the process. All this to say, Jeremy, you're up.
Robert Cross, this message is for Cutlets. I appreciate your cool, calm, measured approach here. Your parents did a good job. Hashtag 53 wins. I would agree. I think they did a good job. I didn't help their case probably, but despite of that, they did a good job.
From Zenny, potential and two-way players with length.
Yes.
So Emmanuel quickly. That's RJ Barrett. That's Quentin Grimes. I like it, and we're going to see if that translates into something long-term successful. I'm not doing this on purpose. It's just how this is working out. Jeremy, you're up.
Robert Cross. Does Thibs have the same faith in Grimes, Obi, and IQ that the front office has? Hat tip to Tommy Beer. Hashtag 53 wins. It really depends on the players ahead. You know, if Evan Fournier is here, Evan Fournier is going to see time. It's going to cut into what Emmanuel quickly could do. If Julius Randle's here, he's going to see time. It's going to cut into what Obi Toppin can do. Quentin Grimes, I think, is probably going to have a consistent role. But the whole thing of also the Knicks front office wanting Thibs to use Quentin Grimes in the starting lineup, what's a great way for that to happen? It's by removing any barricade or anything that would inhibit that from happening, which is finding a new home for Evan Fournier.
Yeah. My turn. Robert Cross, you best believe that Broadway Barrett will do just fine this year. He will not be the problem today or tomorrow moving forward. Hashtag 53 wins. Love the vibes, Robert. Love the passion. Next up, wow, I got to scroll down for this one. You're up.
Alex, can Leon put an end to trading lottery picks for future top protections now, though? I mean, the picks that he received, I guess, are the ones that were on the table. So he viewed that as getting protected first round picks is a better option than not getting it or getting the 11th overall pick. And time will tell if trading the 11th overall pick instead of taking a player will work out for his benefit. But I mean, I'm sure he would have loved unprotected picks. It's just, there's only so much you can do.
The spirit of this goes back to draft night. You can't have all this love and adoration for Deuce McBride, Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly, Jericho Sims, and not recognize the Knicks have an eye for talent, and especially later in the draft. And as a result, if they decide there's nobody at 11 we like, they know more than us. They have hit on draft picks more than we have. At least this front office has. And as a result, you have to trust that they see more value in the 3 picks that they got back, which, look, they were a Quentin Grimes or a Mayo Quickly or a Danny Ainge, not being Danny Ainge away from getting Donovan Mitchell for those 3 picks, or 3 of those picks. So I'm going to trust that Walt Perrin has a better eye for talent than I do. And like, as things still stand today, it's 11 picks in the next 7 years. So yeah, I'm okay with the treasure chest still being full, even if it wasn't emptied this time. Shout out to Nick Desimoni, who just sent a contribution. We appreciate it. I think no, you're up. Just
yeah. And one more thing, talking about 11 picks in 7 years. Again, what if they find a way to add to that? Just with that type of situation of moving Randle, taking on Russ, who is unplayable. Again, Randle has his flaws, but if you polled 30 teams, at least one would say, yeah, we'll take Julius Randle even without on a minimum contract. I really don't know how many teams would take Russell Westbrook on a minimum contract just based on how last year unfolded, how the year before that went. Great individual talent, incredible, but just team-wise, I don't know. Steve Savale.
Alex had a response to what I said in the general chat. This front office, yes. Like what his comment was saying was this front office. I would have hit on more picks than Steve Mills if I threw darts blindfolded. Well put, Alex. Well put. Go ahead, read Steve's comment.
I would say just watch out for the chair that's parked in the paint Kevin Knox does a great job of destroying it.
Exactly.
Steve Savale, don't any of you think Randle had a bad year because he had no point guard? Brunson will make him an all-star again. I mean, is Randle going to completely overhaul his shot diet? Like, I understand that if you don't have someone who's setting the table, it can be a problem, but Randle is and has always been a high usage player, right? And again, the issue was more you can't have him, RJ, Donovan, and Brunson because there're just too many cooks in the kitchen. And if Mitchell's not here, then you can make a better case that he should stay. And yet I don't think you can, because even still, the amount of minutes that he has, you can't play him with Obi Toppin. The reason I say can't is because Tom Thibodeau won't. It's just not going to be possible. And if you look at last year, right, the reason why he did it was all these different players were in foul trouble, or they were injured, right? Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel. They brought in Taj Gibson. Okay. And then there's a point where they still could have brought Obi in, and Thibs calls for Alec Burks instead.
Yeah, the Minnesota game. Yeah.
Right. So the same thing's happening here. It's Mitch. It's now Hartenstein. It's Jericho Sims. Thibs wants 48 minutes of rim protection. He's not going to get that. But with Randle, again, to me, it hasn't so much been he's missing a point guard. I mean, that's an impact. Don't get me wrong. It's just Randle likes to be that guy. And that guy takes shots away from RJ Barrett and Jalen Brunson. And he had a down year, but I'm sure the point guard play, or lack thereof, didn't help. But a lot of the things with Randle is that it comes down to his game style and who he is.
So Jeremy just made the point for his play style, which JD Sports Talk, when he was here last week, made the same point, that he's the only way for him to be successful is high usage. He's not an off-ball player. His best stretch last season in the middle of the year when we were like, oh, Randle's back, was when Thibs inexplicably left RJ in a blowout, and it was just all Randle all the time. As far as him not having a point guard, he made second team All-NBA, playing most of his minutes next to Elfrid Payton. Like, that is not the reason why Julius Randle was bad last year. It's because all the long twos he hit and on the threes that he hit in 2021 did not fall in 2022. I'm not, and look, I've actually started to become the Randle hater, according to the general public in our comments. It's less about whether I think he can be better this year. He cannot be worse than last season. I'm the one that preaches what he did 2 years ago was special, and I'm the one that got engaged because I made a bet on Julius. Well, okay, not because of that, but I was able to get engaged quicker because I made a bet on Julius Randle making most improved player and used the profits to put a deposit down for an engagement ring. I love Julius Randle. I will thank him for what that season meant to me personally and as a Knicks fan. I also recognize that they picked the power forward with the 8th pick in the draft. They have a coach that doesn't want to play them together. And what's better for this team is not 3 guys that are better in the starting 5 or high minutes that need the ball. It is solely a fit thing with Julius Randle. And, you know, I wish him well in Charlotte or LA or Indiana, or wherever he goes. I think this team would be better. And there's another part that I don't think we've even talked about. Say John's 10% doomsday scenario of them falling out of the play-in exists. It's easier to pivot to a tank if Julius isn't here because, all right, well, we have kids that are playing, and if they show that they still need to learn a little more, all right, we're going to pull the plug on this season with 22 games to go. And then what happened in the last 14 games doesn't happen because now you're pivoting a little more. So,
yeah, that's a good point. Especially, I'm just thinking of this roster and how it's constructed. I mean, you've got Jalen Brunson, who turned 26 the other day, yesterday. Quentin Grimes, projecting the front office, the starting lineup. RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson. Those are 5 players 26 or younger. You've got Emmanuel Quickly. You've got Cam Reddish currently. Even if you throw in Fournier, Rose, and Randle, that's what, 7 out of 10 who are 26 or below. And then Deuce McBride and Jericho Sims. So that's 9 out of 12, right? I mean, I think I'm forgetting someone. 9 out of 13. There's another player that I'm blanking on, but like that's impressive. And I don't mean that like the way in terms of, yes, if you do pivot into a tank, let's say they do this thing that I have in mind, and they move Randle and Fournier out, and they bring in Westbrook, but they don't bring him in. They just banish him. And they have Derrick Rose, and then let's just face it, they probably bring in someone like Carmelo Anthony. And now you're looking at a rotation that's what? Maybe 80%, 26 or younger. I think they'll be fun, but they also, to John's credit, there could be nights where it's just, this is a young team that is learning how to win games. And that's okay, because guess what? They still have the draft pick because it wasn't traded for Donovan Mitchell.
And this is where reading Jake Fisher's book has just helped me to understand the PR of basketball a little better. If the kids are learning and they lose, it's so much more digestible than we played Julius Randle 40 minutes and lost. We played Alec Burks at point guard and lost. Like, if Emmanuel Quickly's learning through the growing pains, it'll be frustrating, but the loss doesn't hurt as much because he's learning through it. Same thing for Obi, same thing for Grimes. And that's how you sell the hope that Leon Rose put in that letter. We said it a couple months ago. The Knicks win 39 games, but it's with high usage from some of the younger guys that this fan base has been clamoring for this entire last 12 months. Let's just put it at that point. I really don't think there's going to be much outcry. The building will be sold out, and I think that at the end of the day is what Dolan cares more about. That the vibes are good, his paycheck is good, not like they're the 10th seed with Julius Randle and high usage from veterans. So yeah, we'll see. G Huber then. What I meant was we have this same combo looking for silver linings every year when we don't trade up and we don't get free agents and we don't trade. Your thoughts, Jeremy? My
thoughts are the same as they were 2.5 months ago or whenever, when the Knicks didn't get Jaden Ivey, when they had more assets at their disposal. I want the Knicks to trade up in the 2023 draft if they can't find another star before then. And I don't think they can find another star before then. And I think there is an expiration on some of these picks, which is why they need to consolidate in some manner. But again, I'm not looking at this as like, well, these are the silver linings. I'm looking at this as I'm genuinely okay with the way that this unfolded. It's really fine because this team is still climbing out of the rut and the graveyard of lack of solid picks, first round picks from 2010 through 2018, 2019, and then you get Porzingis, and now you're kicking the can down the road the other way. So I understand the frustration, as I've said, but yes, there is a point at which, okay, Leon, let's be serious. But if this past draft taught us anything, and I know that the circumstances were different, but if this is as loaded of a draft class as is said to be the case, and you have one team that's looking to maybe get more picks and is cool with quantity as opposed to quality, that's when you strike. If there's a star that's, don't really want to be here anymore. Like, as John said, if someone like Brandon Ingram, for whatever reason, or another star, whoever it is, becomes available, you're ready. It's just a matter of if they're the right fit for what you want. So it's not silver linings. It's just, I'm cool with it and evaluating ways that the Knicks can improve moving forward.
Here's how I look at it. Do you think that adding Jalen Brunson, trading away Kemba, Burks, Noel, and Hartenstein is a step forward from last season?
Yeah, I do.
Then they didn't take a step back today. They're still at that same step forward. They had a chance to take a giant leap. These are so many sports cliches that we use in the media, but I'm just going to say them anyway. They have not taken a step back yet. So that's where I am with this. You're up.
Clifton Span, do you think we will trade Evan before the season? Would not shock me at all. But I think they probably figure Randle is a higher priority on that list.
Juanon, if Mitchell was a hometown kid, how upset would we all really be? The fit wasn't worth the price.
Upset, but not quite to that level. I agree with that. The roots had a huge factor. You want to root for the New York born and raised guy. I get that 100%. So yeah, I'm sure that plays a huge part.
I asked this a couple months ago. It was like right after free agency. We don't have confirmation that because he grew up a Mets fan in New York that he grew up a Knicks fan. You know, like that element, the infatuation with the Knicks has never been confirmed. For all we know, he grew up in New York, but a fan of like the Lakers, like some New York basketball fans do. So the homegrown nature, I don't know how much it applies. There was Kyrie talk, and then people realized, oh, he grew up in New Jersey and a Nets fan, you know?
Right. I had been told by someone who apparently knew him growing up
that he was a Knicks fan. Oh, well, then that confirms that, everybody. Now it changes all my entire perspective. Should have traded for him. Should have traded RJ.
But listen,
and unprotected.
He liked the Heat. He loved Dwayne Wade. By the way, the Miami Heat, who were not even in the final stages of this trade conversation. I wonder why. It's because the package they had just wasn't very good. So
why do you hate Tyler Hero? Hold on. Did we read that last one? Or did I skip through it? Hold on. Yeah, we did. It was Drew and on. Mm-hmm. Apologies, folks. Producing on the fly.
You're doing great.
ML Nairn. Thank you. Confirmed. Thanks. You confirmed my initial thoughts. This is disappointing, but it confirms we finally have a competent front office that won't mortgage future. I agree. I think it's not a silver lining, like you said. Balancing the two emotions, I think, is important. You know?
Yeah, like
this is
getting Donovan
but
Mitchell
I'm not upset long term, you know?
Right. And I don't think getting Donovan Mitchell would be mortgaging the future. It would just be making it that much harder to add true talent around him. And I know that might seem like a runaround way of saying the same thing, but it's more like you get Donovan Mitchell in the building. That's great. Like he is still your future. But yeah, if the whole endpoint is a championship or at least contending for one, then it does handicap you a little bit.
Yeah.
Sheer brilliance. Let's go, Jeremy. The offseason was still solid. PG, no veterans eating up minutes, more first rounders, solid. Like this year's draft, more is in store. Agree with all that. The only thing being some veterans eating up minutes. And I just want to be clear. I don't view veterans on a roster as inherently bad. It's good to have veterans. It's better to have veterans that work with your whole game plan. So, you know, like having Derrick Rose is a very good veteran. The only thing is you would ideally have him playing off of Emmanuel quickly as well. You could say Evan Fournier, if not for the presence of someone like Cam Reddish. Maybe he's a good veteran off the bench, but not quite sure. And then there's Julius, who's not the best veteran. You know, they're like the Tajes of the world, which, yeah.
Trade for Russell Westbrook. He's a veteran.
That he is.
Yeah. He doesn't have to play. He just has to be paid by the Knicks next year. Mark Sable, LFGM. Shout out to you, Mark. Unhappy, but glad Dolan didn't force an overpay. I'm glad we made that point at the top. Yes. The fact that Dolan didn't get involved here does show some discipline, which I think is an actual silver lining of all of this. But how long does he give this front office to add, draft, or develop a true star? I think we said it, at least this year, and a coaching change. You know, that's my thought, at least.
Yeah, I agree. Sergio Acosta, Leon drew a line line that he wouldn't cross. That's it. Love the newsletter. You guys are a great trio. But where's my boy Chris at? Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. I'm sure John would say thank you for the newsletter. And Chris, and he's been doing his own. He's doing his own thing.
That's not his.
Which KRIS.
I'm joking.
Yes.
Yeah, Chris, find Twitter Spaces because it's probably there. Bad eyesight. Reason I can sleep good tonight is RJ and Quick, 2 first-round picks, are real offers. We tried. Jake Fisher said yesterday, every time deal got close, Ainge walked away. You know what? Cosign. Yeah. They did make an honest offer to get Donovan Mitchell. From that more than anything, the Knicks didn't get Donovan Mitchell. They actually did try to get him. And the Jazz wanted more Cavs unprotected picks, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, and Agbaji. Like, true. They went with an offer they liked more. The Knicks didn't lowball them just to seem like they were in it. You know, this was legitimate.
Yep.
So I co-sign that.
Alex, Fair or not, the spotlight's now on RJ. The Knicks are clearly betting on RJ to really break out, and he now has the $120 million contract. The days of getting passes for 5-21 shooting nights have ended. Sure, it's also easier to do that when you don't have Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson both in the area that you might want to operate in, especially as you go left.
So yeah. The 5-for-21 nights, he's right. He won't get passes for those anymore. Man, if they do bet high on him and trade Randle, right, and create more spacing, and it's a Brunson RJ team, then man, I hope these 5-for-21 nights just don't happen anymore. Clearly, like I think I'd like to think that the 5-for-21 nights are done as a result. But we'll see. Next up, Anthony Sixto. I am hyped for our squad. Glad we didn't overpay, and I know Cleveland is good, but Cleveland, Spider-Man got like 3 buildings to swing around. It's a great joke.
Yeah.
That tickled me. That was really good. You read the next one. Hey,
Frank Miranda. What's up, fellas? It's your boy Frank from Patreon. This front office really punted on a draft pick in 2022 and leaned into nepotism all for Jalen Brunson and to watch Thibs mismanage the rotation again.
Oh, geez.
Man, that's
the opposite of vibes.
Frank. All right. Again, Jalen Brunson's a really good point guard. It was the connections that helped get him here. And I can't blame, time will tell. I can't blame them for turning the 11th pick overall into 3 first-round picks. I understand they are protected, but it's the sort of thing where if they felt like there wasn't the talent on the board, we would be way more upset down the line if they burned through the 11th pick overall, and later we had learned they could have gotten 3 first-round picks instead of it. So only time will tell, but it does cut both ways.
What happens if the Donovan Mitchell summers last summer? Like, if they went into last summer, and I'm trying to process if the vibes are so bad from what last season was. Like, to Frank's comment here, it's about like punting on the draft pick that was supposed to be the reward for all the losing, and then the worry about Thibs mismanaging. We trusted so many things about Thibs, so many things about, would we be more comfortable? Would it be an overwhelming like 80-20 that, you know what, screw it, don't need Donovan Mitchell. I got my guy Julius Randle. RJ's going to take another leap. Thibs is the coach of the year. Like, I trust things more. Is it a vibes thing that you think a portion of the fan base is going to have closer to Frank's reaction?
The thing with, if Donovan Mitchell were traded with 4 years of team control, he would have cost more than the Cavs just gave up. And the philosophy,
play out the scenario. If he was traded, if he was on 3 years of control.
So if he was on, if it were pushed back a year,
I'm literally saying, yeah, like
I
the vibes of of last summer that were there were this summer,
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's very rare for a star to be traded into another team's cap space. But if the whole thing with Leon Rose was wanting to save money, granted, you can turn cap space into an asset, but he's better suited flipping Colin Sexton than he is having cap space. So, but let's play along with that. The Knicks are probably in a better spot. They're not signing Evan Fournier, that's for sure. They've got Julius Randle under contract. They've got RJ Barrett. The point guard situation's tricky still. They don't go after Kemba, is my guess. Things are better. But we're talking about what? Fewer picks, still handcuffed there. The value of the pick that the Knicks would have had this year would not have been 11th. It would have probably been closer to 20th, 18th maybe. That's somewhat important. So, yeah, strictly from a vibes perspective, sure. Yeah.
I also think you and I talked about whether they'd have to trade RJ for Dame last summer, and yeah, I think the deal would have been RJ for Mitchell, and I think same like now. There's a sigh of relief that the Jazz didn't take that offer. If last summer the Knicks made an honest offer for Donovan Mitchell, and then the Jazz turn it down and we keep RJ, the relief is even higher because we want to keep the good thing we have going. We'll say if then Randle turns back into a pumpkin and the following season then still happens and they missed out on Donovan Mitchell, it would have made the vibes of the next season even worse.
Yep.
So you hope that doesn't happen anyway. Believe this is me. Rob, the lose. Oh, my fellow Mets fan. Gentlemen of the Garden, great to hear you guys. I'm glad we didn't get fleeced. I am also glad we didn't get fleeced. Rob, LFGM, you're up.
John Kim, I'm glad the trade didn't happen. Utah wanted way too much. Should package a draft pick to ship Randle somewhere else and build through the draft. Let's go New York Knicks. Again, I'm not cool with that. I'm not trading a first-round pick. It's also it feels oxymoronic to say let's package a draft pick to ship to Randle, but then build through the draft. You know,
I think what he's saying though is
I totally
one of
get
the
what John's
protected.
saying.
Yeah,
I understand. No, and in my mind, the only thing that would go out would be a protected pick. I get what John's trying to say here. It feels like two things going in the opposite direction. You're giving up a pick to move off of it. I guess it comes down to how much you can stomach having Randle here for longer. It's like we've had this conversation before. It's like, does he need to go or does he need to go? He doesn't need to go, but he should go. So he needs to go. It's the context of that's important. But yeah, I can't. I'm not comfortable giving up a first to move Randle. I'm just not. And I don't think the Knicks are either.
I also don't think they have to. Perception in New York is different than around the country.
Yep.
I do want to say I think you value the protected picks a little higher than it seems like. Well, definitely more than Danny Ainge did. And then I think the rest of us kind of consider that.
Not what I'm getting at. I'm very comfortable moving protected first. I'm not comfortable attaching them to move someone like Randle. There's a difference. It's one thing if I'm not saying that the protected firsts are going to get you Donovan Mitchell. Clearly they didn't. It took 3 unprotected firsts, right? Like you could make an upgrade in the starting lineup. I'm not saying specifically, but you could take a player, add a protected first and get a somewhat better player who's not a star, right? Like that I understand. It's okay. I don't want to take something that's considered a neutral and negative asset and then slap a pick onto it and then toss it out. It's why I go back to, again, you still have Russell Westbrook out there. Maybe the Hornets are interested. There are avenues for you to do it. I don't think the Knicks are comfortable with it at all. And I don't blame them if they are.
Brock Aller definitely isn't. I think you're.
But if we're not, but if they're not rushing, then why is Leon Rose rushing to move Randle?
Again, it's a fit. It's a basketball fit issue for me. I
totally understand,
especially with Obi going into year 3 with no guaranteed. Now, look, this is the other thing I said to JD last week. If night 1 Randle plays 26 minutes and Obi plays 22, I will be like, keep him, whatever. It's not going to happen, Jeremy.
Yeah,
I know.
I know you know this. Yeah.
I'm literally saying that's the scenario in which I'll then get off the they need to trade Julius thing. If it's 28-20, I'll even be fine. But Obi needs to play more. You can't. It's not even if I'm overly believing in Obi. You can't draft a guy 8th overall and then play him 8 minutes a night to do something he's never done consistently in college. That's just a bad use of him as an asset. Also, him as a basketball player. And then, when he goes someplace else, God forbid you played a player 8 minutes that might prove that he can be a higher volume minutes player someplace else to extend Julius Randle instead. That's an actual nightmare scenario.
You're preaching to the choir. It's just like last year, we were saying the Knicks have to make a move, right? They have to clear up this logjam. The Knicks said, "Yeah, no, we don't have to do that right now. That can wait." I think the circumstances are a little different, 100%, but they've just shown far more patience than I think a lot of us would have exerted.
But that's why the blame for me was always on the front office.
Of course.
The Thibs and the players argument was I'd rather someone from up top step in, because whether they believe it or not, we've done a good job of explaining why they don't believe that. I disagree with them, I guess is my point at the end of the day.
Sure.
Dom Cappuccini, if the Knicks accepted Danny Ainge's final offer, would each of you be more disappointed than you are currently? if more disappointment could be possible, got to be honest, Don, it'd be probably about the same, because it would then the butt would be different, because I heard it too. Right now it's like, wow, this summer of Donovan Mitchell didn't end with Donovan Mitchell, but you still took a step forward with Jalen Brunson, and the treasure chest is still full. If they did make that final offer, it's damn, like, I wanted to see what RJ would turn into. I liked Emmanuel quickly, but you got the first star in the building. It's only 2 years unprotected picks, and in 3 years, if they've taken a step forward, that next guy will eye New York as a target. There's a balance to both perspectives that I think exists.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we could have said the Knicks of Donovan Mitchell, but by all accounts, it would have been with no RJ Barrett, with no Emmanuel quickly, with 2 unprotected firsts gone, and Evan Fournier to make the math work.
Yeah,
because they weren't going to move Derrick Rose, which also would have made the math work, who would have been a better contract for the Jazz as well. So it would have been like, this hurts, but you get Donovan Mitchell. Whereas now it's, you don't get Donovan Mitchell, but the roster stays intact, and there's some work for them to do, and hopefully they can finally do it now that this is behind us.
Actually, all behind us. Hell yeah. Hush Zoo.
It's me.
You're up.
Hush Zoo, last question. Seeing how high the Knicks see Grimes, is he a lock for the starting 2 now? If not, does he see a significant minute bump this year? He'll definitely see a significant minute bump, but again, it's up to the front office to really clear this up. If they can't clear it up, then just more problems for Thibs. And he's got to be able to have a rotation. As John said, if it's 9, then that's at least 2 players that he's cutting out, arguably 3. If it's 10, then it's 1 player, arguably 2. They've got to do some sort of fall cleaning, if you will.
In the spirit of this question, I think today is about reacting to the Mitchell trade. We've got another potential evergreen pod coming this Sunday. You and I will have to talk off the air if that's still happening. We will, I think, spend all of September, or at least most of September, not talking about the potential transactions. Like, eventually we are going to pivot to like how this fits basketball wise, and about the upcoming season and how it can work, how it couldn't work. Like, that is a thing we're going to shift to. So no worries. We will talk about starting lineup machinations and different lineups we'd like to see in the not too distant future. Hush you and any other people that are tired of the off seasons of what ifs and potential transactions. Buzzer beater. Could we still have traded for Spida $30 million for RJ after the extension because the salaries are close? Yes, but Jeremy, I'll let you explain how.
Yes, but also RJ's extension isn't for this year; it's for
next year,
later, and the poison pill would have impacted it. Could have happened. It just wasn't as likely.
Abdoulaye Diallo. It's not the end of the world, guys. Relax. I don't mind watching good talent develop. I too don't mind watching good talent develop. I believe this is Ray Marcano's super chat that I read earlier.
Oh, 37 wins?
Yes, hashtag 37 wins. So shout out Ray. Oh no, and there it is. I'll read it again. You guys are beasts. 2 hours in, I want what Robert Cross is smoking because the Knicks are a 37 win team. Hashtag 37 wins, hashtag dump redacted. And then you're up.
Zach Messick. I really feel like we have adults in the front office. This wasn't the exciting move, but given the price, it was the responsible move. I'm okay with that. I agree.
Cosign. Dom Cappuccini, as pissed off much of the fan base is as pissed off as most of the fan base is right now. I think a welfare check should be done on Thibs as well. Yeah, what do you think Thibs is thinking about this? That the Knicks don't get Donovan Mitchell?
I think he's upset. Because he knows this team needs more talent. And if he were in charge, he would have done exactly what he did in Minnesota. He would have gotten his guy. In Minnesota, it was Jimmy Butler. Here, it would have been presumably Donovan Mitchell. And I think he wanted to keep Quentin Grimes. think he's probably okay with RJ Barrett if he's not here, just based on how it seems. And I think he would have moved Evan Fournier as a result, and he would have added as many unprotected firsts as necessary, and he would have added pick swaps too. So, yeah, I think he's happy that he gets to work with a player like Grimes. But if Grimes was never on the table, then I'm sure he's disappointed right now.
Speaking of Thibs, if Berman report is true, I'd love to be is it you?
No, Lunas Amarat.
Oh, what'd I say?
You didn't.
Oh, Lunas Amarat. Apologies. If Berman report is true, I'd love to be a fly on the wall of the New York front office and wondering how they value Grimes versus RJ and IQ. Like what they think his ceiling is. Well, they think his ceiling is not a max, but definitely 4 years and $130 million. $120 million. Yeah. That's at least part of the ceiling. I mean, John's reported on this, and we've been going through different other beat reporters that have been plugged into this. There's a split opinion on RJ within the front office. At least that's how I read it. Some see him as significantly higher than what his ceiling is so far, and they got a bargain on the contract. And then some see him as a much lower ceiling, maybe like a potential all-star one day on like an injury replacement. And as a result, they could see him being in the next trade, like absolutely the centerpiece of a next trade and nowhere near an untouchable. Is that a fair assessment, Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't think there's a single player who's untouchable on this roster.
Right now, I think there's one.
In Grimes?
No. Well, okay, two. I don't think Leon Rose is trading his godson.
Oh, sorry. I thought, yes, sure. Yes.
And
I was thinking more of the players who can't be traded anyway. Like at this moment.
Okay.
But yes, you're 100% right. Brunson,
I think,
and I guess Grimes.
In a future deal under this front office, there's two untradeable players. And well, if I say this front office, knowing Thibs would sacrifice his body, like his whole year for Derrick Rose to stay on the roster. But I think they brought Jalen Brunson here because it was good family business. And then obviously Quentin Grimes is apparently untouchable. Next up,
Matt, Aussie Knicks fan. Morning, friends. For what it's worth, I am totally okay with not paying that price for Mitchell. Can't wait for our young kids to grow and develop. Yeah, see, even down under, they believe this.
Well done. Shout out, Matt. Sima Singh. I love except for the Giants logo, I honestly don't care. I love the artwork. In his artwork, there is a Giants helmet, a Rangers logo, and an old school Knicks logo, and a Mets logo. Love it. Blame Phil Jackson, not Leon Rose, for Mitchell not being here. Yes, stay awake in the draft day workout, pre-draft workout. Phil Jackson has that.
Yeah.
You're up. Well, it's actually for you too.
Kevin Danishevsky. Jeremy, what's the likely Randle destination now? Again, I'd say Charlotte in a 3-team deal, could even be a 2-team deal with LA. I still don't see the fit in LA, but if they do, that's great. I don't think they do. In Phoenix, maybe you could do a 3-team trade with LA as well. You could do a 3-team deal with Phoenix and Charlotte. So I know I've just listed 3 out of the other 29 franchises. So yeah,
that's
but I'll
three
say,
though. Yeah,
I'll
there's
say
3 destinations.
I mean, those are the 3 obvious ones. I'm not exactly saying anything that's groundbreaking here, but I'll rank them as Charlotte, Phoenix, LA.
2 of those, one of which we've already had on the pod, and 2 of which we'll have next week. We have a Charlotte person and a Phoenix person coming on next week to see if we can figure out a Julius Randle trade before the front offices do. Next up, Dom Cappuccini, 40 wins and no play-in. First of all, Dom, thank you for the contribution. It's very generous. 40 wins and no play-in. I said 43 before the schedule, and Cavs getting better. If RJ is an all-star, Quentin Grimes is a solid starter, Jalen Brunson spikes the offense, and Julius Randle stays out of the way. Oh, and the defense doesn't drop off. We hear back, and trades will be easier in the future. It's funny. He said all of that after he said 40 wins and no play-in. Can I be totally honest with you? I don't see the 10th team that's better than the Knicks. I just don't. Charlotte's a mess right now. Yeah, they have LaMelo. He's probably better than anybody that's on the Knicks right now.
He is.
They're a mess.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
The Knicks are better than the Hornets as currently constructed. And maybe if we trade the Julius Randle, they'll be even worse. Like, as currently constructed, the Knicks are at least the 10th best team. And an argument could be made that because injuries happen, they're better than Chicago, too. So they're the 9th best team. Then a couple wins go a different way because, the NBA happens and it plays close games and the East might be more of a gauntlet. They get up to 8th. Like, why is that so impossible that some Knicks fans are seeing today is, all right, we're stuck as, Dom, I'm probably bringing this energy to you. I'm not fully bringing it to you. I feel like there is a sentiment that the Knicks are now not even a play-in team. They're stuck as the 11th best team still.
Oh, well, memories are short. There's an argument that Washington is a worse team than the Knicks. They have Bradley Beal, but
yeah,
if it all comes together, they've got injury concerns with Porzingis. I mean, on paper, maybe they're older. They've got more star talent, quote unquote. So that could be the case. As for 40 wins and no play-in, I feel like I agree. 40 wins might get you the 11th seed, which is not the play-in. It's out of the playoff picture.
But what team is getting?
I'm just saying, if we're talking no play-in, that would imply 6th seed, right? So 40 wins is not getting you to the 6th seed.
Oh, okay. I took this as 40 wins and no play-in. Like, they're not even going to make the play-in. 40 wins will be the 11th.
Oh,
seed. Yeah.
In that case, then if that's the deal, then yeah, that would line up in terms of not being able to make the play-in. I agree. I still think they can make the 9th or 10th seed.
I will here. $5 bet to Jeremy right now. I'll Venmo you. I've been doing the $5 bets with Rich, like $5 if Darren Ruff flies out right now or gets a hit right here. And guess what? Hasn't been happening. $5 to Jeremy if the Knicks don't make the play-in at least next year. Okay.
Wait, as in, I'm saying they do, and you're saying they don't.
Yeah. No, I'm saying they will.
But I'm also saying they will. So why would
listen, you don't have to pay me anything. I'm literally putting my money where my mouth is.
Okay.
I will pay Jeremy. He doesn't have to give me anything other than you were wrong.
This is an excellent deal. I like this.
Okay. Cool. The easiest $5 you may have ever made. Yeah. Speaking of $5, Mr. Knicks 101, thank you for the contribution in the super chat. And then here's his actual comment. Go ahead, Jeremy.
If you're Leon Rose, how do you sell this Knicks roster to a free agent?
He just did.
Well, the good news is, as John's saying, if free agency is not super active, then you don't have to do a whole lot of selling because you pretty much have to trade for them. But yeah, what you're selling is what you're at least selling to the general fan base is we're a younger team that's stocked with picks that's looking to develop, grow, and compete. They just have to figure out what they're doing with some of the veterans on the roster, and I think that picture will be a little clearer from there.
Last super chat, and we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. Bernard Richardson, getting lost in this is that it wouldn't have been just picks going out, but flexibility for any next move, and Leon and co recognize that. Old regimes overlooked that, did the right thing, in my opinion. Yeah. That's the entire reason why RJ was included. Because by all accounts, if the Knicks were comfortable trading 4 picks and Grimes, they'd be gone.
Yep.
They weren't. And it's honestly the benefit of what Cleveland did is they hit on Mobley, they hit on Garland. They're comfortable building around those two enough to sell Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland for 3 years and then hopefully an extension. Man, listen, empathy to Cleveland fans out there. We have some Justin and Carter from the Chase Down Pod are friends of our show as well. Man, if the Cavs lose LeBron and Kyrie and then Donovan Mitchell, I know that there's different situations involved here, right? But if they lose LeBron the way they did the decision, Kyrie forces his way out in the middle of what was supposed to be runs to the finals. And then Donovan Mitchell, they trade everything for that's the full backfire in PTSD if you're a Cavs fan. But yeah, I agree with Bernard's statement. I think that overall is the majority sentiment. To this poll that we've been running, how are you feeling today? Good, price was way too high, 52%. Bad, need to get a star, 17%. And then neutral, trust the process, 31%.
So we're still at 83%.
Yeah, like the majority of people feel like this price is way too high, and this is the most votes we've had on one of these polls, 808 votes. Yeah, I think there will be the larger sentiment is I'm glad they called Danny Ainge's bluff and didn't go all in now. You know?
I agree.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap up, Jeremy?
I mean, a lot of it was obviously captured in the almost 3-hour pod. So thank you
Look at us
all for sticking with us. But yeah, I mean, again, the front office is clearly willing to take risks because it's a risk as good as Donovan Mitchell is to trade RJ Barrett, Emmanuel quickly, and 2 unprotected first-round picks. I feel like that's going to get lost in the fray of, even if you're happy that Donovan Mitchell's not here because of that cost, there is that offer. That offer was on the table. And what happens if we're in a world where the Jazz accept that offer? I think it's pretty jarring. And I want fans to keep that in mind moving forward, because you have to give to get talent. And the Knicks aren't at the spot where they could afford to give up what Cleveland did, because they're just simply not. That's not where they're at right now. But there will come a point in which the Knicks have to trade for a star, and it's going to cost them, and it's going to hurt. And the reward will hopefully be better because we'll be further along that timeline. And you would hope that the value of some of these players accrues in such a way where they're not treated as, small pieces of the puzzle, but like a main course. But also, as they get better, our love for those players is only going to grow. And it's just going to be hard to say goodbye no matter what. And sometimes it's the right decision. Sometimes the hardest decision is the right one. Now it wasn't. But there will come a point in which it has to be. And so if you were really in favor of getting Donovan Mitchell, I'm sorry. I am. I feel for you. If you were at best neutral, the day goes on. The next one comes about. And if you're really cool with this team being the way it is and maybe making some other tinkering as well, then that's great. But just keep in mind what could have happened can still happen down the line.
Yeah. Look no further than this summer. The Knicks were done. And then the Jazz got Rudy Gobert for all the picks, and Donovan Mitchell became available. Who knows who that player might be next summer or during the season? We'll see. Thank you to everybody. Still just under 600 people watching live on YouTube as well as on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you to John. Thank you to Jeremy. To all of our super chat contributors, as well as all of the people just watching live and helping away in the regular chat. We appreciate you following along with us this summer. The summer of Donovan Mitchell might be over. The summer of Julius Randle may now begin for the next, at least a month or week or so of Julius Randle might begin. We'll cover it as best we can. If you dug this video, please like below as well as subscribe to the channel. If you are listening on the podcast, whichever episode you got to, well, at this point, you got to episode 3 of this. If you dig the show, head over to iTunes, drop a 5-star rating and a review. Those reviews help us go a long way in getting the word out and getting the show more eyeballs, more attention. We made it through, Jeremy. Hopefully we get to enjoy the next month before basketball comes back. But until next time, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will speak with you all soon. Peace.